All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, I'd like to convene the Single Family Design Board for August 3rd, 2020. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call. We have Chair Miller.
Here.
Vice Chair James.
Here. Vice
Board
Chair.
Member Farrell. Board Member Farrell, I'm sorry, I didn't. Think you might be on mute.
I'm sorry, Board Member Farrell, this is Ellen Kokenda. I muted you because you were still unmuted during the tech test and I didn't want you to have your microphone live. So you're unmuted now, you can speak, sorry.
Okay, I'm here.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha. Board Member Motisha.
They keep pushing those buttons.
Okay, I'll come back to him. Okay, thank you.
Here.
Board Member Richards.
I'm here.
Board Member Sweeney.
Here.
And Board Member Ziegler is absent. Thank you.
All right, thank you. On to general business, public comment. Do we have anyone who wants to speak or did we get any emails?
Mr. Chair, we currently do not have anyone joining us via webinar, so we will not have any public speakers for general public comment, and I would ask Ted if we received any written correspondence.
And Mr. Chair, there is no written correspondence for this item on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to the approval of the minutes for the Single Family Design Board meeting for July 20th, 2020. May I have a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve that.
I'll
Do I have a
second it.
second? Okay, thank you. So let's go down the list, please.
Yes, we have Chair Miller.
Well, hold on. We need to go through the items first, right? Sorry. Let's move through the items. 802 East Kai Laurealis. Item number 2, 414 Yankee Farm Road. Was that item number 2? Item number 3, 1103 Harbor Hills Drive. Seeing that those are the items, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Miller.
Yes?
Vice Chair James.
Yes.
Board Member Farrell.
Yes.
Board Member Motisha.
Yes.
Board Member Richards.
Yes.
And Board Member Sweeney.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to the approval of the consent calendar for July 27th. May I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve the consent for the 27th.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. Ted, could you please go through the items?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first item on the July 27th consent calendar was 18 Northridge Road, and the motion was for project design approval with comments. Item B was 630 Miramonte Drive. The motion was for final approval with comments. And item C was 1177 Los Alturas Road, and the motion was to continue indefinitely with comments.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, we have Chair Miller.
Yes?
Vice Chair James.
Yes.
Board Member Farrell.
Yes.
Board Member Motisha.
Yes.
Board Member Richards.
Yes.
And Board Member Sweeney.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to today, August 3rd for consent. May I have a motion for approval?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Ted, could you review the projects?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item A on today's consent calendar was 1714 Hillside Road, and the motion was for project design approval and final approval with comments. And item B was 2030 Anacapa Street, and the motion was for project design approval with comments.
Thank you. And who reviewed these projects?
Mr. Chair, Board Member Sweeney and Board Member Richards reviewed these items.
Great, thank you very much. So moving on to, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, we have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
and Board Member Sweeney.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuance and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals. Do we have any of those items to talk about? Lisa?
I do have an announcement, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
to the board and the general public, that I will unfortunately have to step down as vice chair and board member as of after the 27th of August meeting. That means the meeting after this one will be my final meeting. And I just would like to thank you all for letting me serve on the board for the last 7 years. It's been a joy and an education and a journey. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa, and I wish you the best.
Thanks.
So to the city, I have a question about that. What is that? How do you deal with this, or is that spot left vacant until next elections, or what? Irma?
Yeah, until
Good afternoon,
December.
Mr. Chair. Go ahead. Go ahead, Lisa.
Go ahead, Irma. Let Irma fill in. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair Miller and board members. Typically what happens is that Vice Chair James's letter or email will be forwarded to the city clerk's office as an official letter of resignation. I did check in with her this morning and she was okay with me sending that up unless she wants to draft something different with the effective date. And what will happen is that her position will be kept vacant until December. That is when the next appointments are made. Now, they're typically made in June and then in December. This June, they did not have any appointments. They didn't have a recruitment, as a matter of fact, and it was due to the COVID situation. So I'm hopeful that we will have a recruitment and appointments in December, and that's when her vacancy will be filled. So until then, you will have to hold your meetings with 6 members.
Okay, don't get sick, anybody. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. So let's move on to E, any subcommittee reports. I don't believe there is any. If anyone else has something they'd like to report. I'm hearing nothing because it's been pretty quiet. With that, I believe we could move on to our agenda items. So I'm assuming the client is here for the first item, which is 3150 Seacliff Lane. This is a new item. It's a concept review, so I will speak it into the record. It's a proposal to demolish an existing single unit residence and construct a new 4,097 square foot single unit residence with a new detached 771 square foot garage, new pool cabana, hardscape and landscape improvements, and a new 6-foot tall site wall with remotely actuated vehicular gates and 2 pedestrian gates. An accessory dwelling unit is proposed under a separate permit. The project site is located on 102,357 square foot lot with a slope of 27% in the Hillside Design District and the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. The proposed 5,153 square foot of development is 90% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. No final appeal action will be taken at this hearing. Project will require neighborhood preservation and hillside design and slope lot findings. Do we have a representative for this project?
You do. How is everyone today?
Hi, Jeffrey, good.
My name
Good.
is Jeff April with Anacapa Architecture, and there's Dan Weber. Well, there's Dan Weber with Anacapa Architecture. Kristen Stoyanova from our office is also available, and I believe the property owners will also be listening in. They have elected not to speak at this time.
All right, if you'd just like to proceed and introduce your project, and I am going to disappear.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time out of your days for this project. It's pretty exciting. It's a beautiful 2-acre lot that's on the bluff top above Hendry's Beach. As stated in the project description, it's a
Jeffrey,
4,000. Yes?
I apologize. Let me stop you. It looks like we've got a timer up on the right-hand corner just to let you guys be aware of. So we're
That's
trying
great.
to limit the time to 15 minutes. So just kind of be conscious of that. Thank you.
I will be. Thank you.
All right.
As was introduced, it's a 4,097 net square foot single family residence, predominantly one floor. There's a small second floor that contains an office and a small rooftop deck. It's not coastal bluff, but just one bluff inland. The topography in that area, the coastal bluff dips down. Hendry's Beach is down in the Boathouse Cafe, or Boathouse is down in that lower area there. So you get uninterrupted coastal views from the property, and you start seeing the coastal bluff rise to the east, to the west. The existing site feels like the kind of Douglas family preserve. It's super natural. There's no formalized gardens. It's an old single-story ranch that's there currently. The bluff top is covered in native chaparral, and the large trees on site are oaks and pines. If you go to page 3 of the PDF, you can see existing photos of the site. So there you'll see some aerial photos as well as some site photos of the existing house. Again, very natural site with little formal landscaping, which we aim to retain. And please note on the lower right-hand corner, there's a white house with a white site wall. That is the property to the north of the site that is west of the 90-degree jig jog on Seacliff. Something to note here is that they have a 6-foot tall plus site wall facing the ocean on this, facing this parcel. And we have reached out to this neighbor to review the development proposed here. And they did not have many comments about it. And they said, you guys have a beautiful view. The current owners of the property did that. We did not. The relationship seems to be amenable. The house immediately to the west, which is not indicated here, is currently for sale. It's sort of a peachy stucco house. Page 4 is neighborhood context. This neighborhood on Seacliff is a really eclectic group of ranch homes, modern homes, mid-century modern homes. There's pretty substantial setbacks from the, or rather on Seacliff side, a lot of the properties tend to be towards the bluff, and therefore they're set very far back from Seacliff. So there's not a lot of visibility along Seacliff to any of the properties. Most properties tend to have a gate with automatic vehicular or automatic access, automatic opening. Yeah, it's a very eclectic neighborhood. Page 5 is the aerial. So, yep, if we zoom in. So the site, if you can see my cursor, is right here, 3150. And the parcel feels like two separate parcels in a way, even though it's one singular parcel. There's this sort of 1 acre portion with the bluff top there. And then there's another open meadow that's also part of this parcel. There's no record of a lot line adjustment or a lot merger. So we think that it was just created this way at the original outset of this little subdivision up there. The slope of the coastal bluff kind of starts tapering away right here to sort of level out once you get to Henry's. The property on the north property line is half of it is at the bend in Seacliff right here. And this bit of Seacliff is the only opportunity to barely see into the property at all from both Henry's, from Cliff Drive, from Seacliff, and all other areas that the general public can get around. It's virtually impossible to see any of this site. Page 6 is our survey. And you can see here's Seacliff coming in sort of right mid property. And then there's an existing right of way that the city has right here for roadworks. And there's a neighbor here, a modern residence, all stucco, kind of a peachy color. And then that neighbor to the north, their site wall is on the property line right here. This fence and property line is heavily vegetated to the properties to the west. Last note here is you can kind of see where the topography ends. That's sort of the edge of bluff. Once you start getting beyond it, it's it's kind of the bluff chaparral. Page 7 is our proposed site plan. So of importance on this site plan, the location of the proposed structure remains largely on the footpad or the building footprint of the existing house. The perimeter has changed, but the majority of the sort of placement of it is on the existing pad. We felt that location was the best. It's still about 38 feet from the eastern property line at the closest point. It doesn't infringe upon the meadow that much. And we kept it away from the bluff top, so there's zero opportunity for any soils conditions or visibility conditions or noise worries to be along Seacliff. We've pulled the garage to the eastern property line, kind of into the corner by the setback. We've rotated it 90 degrees to the road. Part of this is to reduce visual mass bulk and scale from the road, even though there's going to be a wall here. And the other part of it is we really wanted this house to sit really naturally on the site. And part of making that happen is to remove effectively all hardscape from the perimeter of the house, so that this house is going to sit there, and on all sides, the landscape is just going to come straight up to the house and really nestle it in and really remove the driveway, the auto court, and the car from any experience in and around the main residence. What else have we done over here? Another item that we're proposing to do is, instead of having the pool, which is kind of sort of typical on bluff top properties, to be south of the house to have the ocean view, we're proposing the pool be up north of the property in the meadow to have a really naturalized, unique environment to have that pool in. That takes activity, water, any kind of noise worries off of the bluff top as well, and puts it over here, away from kind of all neighbors, and it's away from any kind of line of sight. Floor or page 8 is our floor plan. So the floor plan has a strategy behind it where the west side of the plan is sort of this volume that contains the master bedroom and a stair upstairs to the office. And then the east side of the house is sort of the kids' bedrooms and a guest bedroom. And those are two solid forms. And then the interstitial space between them becomes the open living, kitchen, dining. So this living kitchen dining is open both north and south and has views, little tiny peeking views of the mountains if you look northeast. And to the south, you do have a little view canyon out to the Channel Islands. These glazing lines are deeply recessed under a roof overhang. You can sort of see a lot of that language happening here where the glazing line is inset and this glazing line is deeply inset as is this glazing line deeply inset from the face of building. Page 9 is the second floor plan. You can see up here in terms of the overall roof configuration, we've justified the second story volume and the roof deck to be far west on the mass of the building. That keeps it the farthest away from our closest neighbor, which is the neighbor to the east. The roof deck is a very small fraction of the overall roof, and at its closest edge is over 80 feet away from the property line. We've verified on the most recent California fire maps. As you know, we've been here discussing green roofs. We have verified and shown on these plans in this submittal that this specific property is not currently in a coastal fire or a coastal interior fire zone. So therefore green roofs are allowed, and we are proposing a green roof above the main floor of the house. You can also see there's a small office right over here. Again, mass bulk and scale is tucked away from the eastern property line, and we've deeply inset our windows into the overall mass. Page 10 is the roof plan. We are proposing to locate the California required photovoltaic system above the second floor. I think that we would do a similar green border around those to really shield any framework from any point of view. It also removes it from any point of view from any of the neighbors. And that's all I have for the roof plan. Page 11 is the pool and garage plan. So the pool, again, is far off into the meadow, and just as a very separate experience for the owner of the house. They didn't want a lot of built environment around the pool, and the garage down here has just a parking area in front for maneuverability and kind of the minimum required hardscape for the garage to function as necessary. Page 12 are the exterior elevations of the residence. So what we're trying to do here is really foster and really like settle sort of a Big Sur style character here with a little bit of a cleaner, more modern take to it. So really foster in on naturally weathering materials that end up making a structure feel very rooted in place. And again, have that landscaping go to the edge of the building, not be buffered with any kind of hardscape. We're currently considering and thinking that this is going to be predominantly board formed exterior on the core, like the core shell is going to be board formed concrete with probably wood interior infill walls. But the board forms, we kind of really want to evoke the idea of naturally weathering cedar really quickly right off the bat. So we would be doing a pretty tight square edge form with not a lot of slop between the board forms. You can help offset the coolness of that exterior material. You can see the screening elements that we're proposing in front of the windows that are in the bedroom areas are going to be a finished wood, like an ipe or a teak, to really give warmth to the exterior and kind of have a really simple, honest interplay of a lighter screening element and a more placemaking exterior form. Again, our glazing, there's no exterior lighting in terms of wall sconces proposed here. Everything would be lit soft in a soffit. And we really want to use the green roof grasses to soften the fascia as well. You can see that the two-story volume is set back from all sides of the building so that there's no straight two-story elevation. Again, we're keeping it west to keep it farthest away from our closest neighbor to the east and have no privacy or noise concerns with that neighbor. What else here? Page 13 is the garage. We're fostering a very similar design language for the garage. I think the garage, we're going to be leaning towards an actual naturally weathering cedar. And again, using a green roof to hide the PV. Lastly, the garage doors, even though it's a 3-car garage, we would like the doors to look like a uniform face to match the screening that's on the house. And we're actually thinking carriage style doors here as opposed to anything that's a sectional overhead or something to really give it something unique. And then below this, you'll see the site wall. It's just a naturally weathering cedar 6-foot site wall that's proposed at the moment with 2 man gates. Thank you for the time it's given to me to propose this project. We're really looking forward to your comments on this. We really appreciate the time that you take to provide us with comments, and we're looking forward to seeing you back at PDA. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Let's see. So this timer that's up there, is that for just the speaker, or is that just for the presentation itself, or does it matter? Ellen or Ted?
I'm happy to answer that, and it's just for the applicant presentation. So when we transition to public comment, we'll have a different timer for that, but it's just for the presentation, so we can try to have some consistency with all the applicant presentations.
All right, thank you. Well, now that I've got you up there, did we get any emails or do we have public comment?
So I think Ted is going to manage it, but I also just want to check with Ted that his audio is working, because it looks like it's on, but I'm okay. So I am going to take over public comment. So I'm going to ask the applicant team to please turn off their webcams, and we are going to start public comment. And hang on just one moment. If you are interested in speaking on this item, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and I will call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And I do not see anyone who wishes to speak at this time. And I'm going to ask Mary if she received any written correspondence from the public.
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little surprised at that. I'm sure there was a notification put out, but I'm just curious if, just kind of surprised at that. So with that, I'm going to bring it back to the board for questions. So I'm just going to go down the list, and I don't have the list in front of me, so I'll go with Vice Chair Lisa. Do you have any questions?
I do, a couple. On the roof plan, I was curious, you mentioned that the photovoltaic cells would have some form of screening, but that got by me quickly, and I was hoping you could elaborate on that again a little.
Yeah, I think what we would like to do is provide a landscape buffer around the edge of the roof on the 2nd floor to show a little bit of grass and softness before the PV system. Since this is not currently it's not a contentious green roof area, we're confident that we'll be able to get it past both building and, fire marshal and building and safety to allow us to have probably a 2-foot deep planting bed here with native drought tolerant grasses, just in the off chance that if you were to look up and see anything, it's really the soft edge mimicking the roof below to help shield any kind of PV system that is up there, since now that's a California mandate for new ground up residential.
Okay, do you have a section through that, or you will eventually?
We will, yeah, for PDA, we'll have a full roof plan and we can show a section through that.
Yeah, cool. Then there was something about a cantilevered steel frame overhead for the roof deck, and I was wondering if you could explain that a little bit. Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. yes, I think if you were to look at this plan right here, there is a cantilevered shade or a cantilevered overhang right here. If you go to an exterior elevation, I can show it in that exterior elevations are page 12. And if you zoom into the top or the second one from the top, to provide shade to the owners and to the users of the deck outside, but to reduce any mass, bulk, and scale on the second floor, we're proposing that there's a cantilever with a steel fascia come out over this roof area that's kind of over that main living space so that you can get southern shade. This mass blocks you from, hardcore west low light sun. And then some tall trees on this side of the property really block you from that really low early morning east sun. But that would be this steel fascia right here on the second floor that comes out over this main deck area.
And that's free floating? Is it just floating out there?
Yeah, it's a cantilevered roof section that the steel beam will run all the way along here as a kind of fascia detail for the second floor, but it would be a continuous fascia all the way across and be free floating, correct?
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Farrell, have any questions?
Could you just zoom in and show me a little bit what you're talking about, where this wood screening exterior is going to be?
Yes, absolutely. If you zoom into where my mouse is right here, where the master bedroom is. I guess it's loading. Any bedroom window that faces north or south is proposed to have horizontal wood screening that covers the full width. It's operable, but it covers the full width of the opening. So right here, if I was to make a square of it at the master bedroom right here, and then the kids' bedroom right here, and the second kid's bedroom right here. So you would have concrete to full width wood screen, back to concrete, to full width wood screen, back to concrete right here. We are not proposing wood screening over the main living area. And then over this area, concrete to wood screening element right here to concrete.
And you said it'll be operable, so you'll be able to move it like sideways or like shutters.
Yes.
What is
imagine it like a slider right now. So those, when you kind of hunker the house down, the sliding panels would align with the sliders behind it, the actual glass sliders behind it. So you could have them stack on one side, or you can have them all be shut. And I'm thinking that they would probably be automated in some way, because during the day you might want them pulled shut for sun, and then kind of in the early morning and in the evenings you might want them open for the sunset views.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, any questions?
And part of my interruption, Mr. Chair, I just want to let the applicants know that if you wish for us to point to something, if you could just give Timmy Bolton directions and just the verbal cues, and he can move his mouse to point out where you want to speak. So that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, Ellen, can I bring follow up? Because it's so frustrating, because I want to grab into my computer screen and pull the drawing so I can look at the different pages, which is what we
Right.
normally do. Is there any way of thinking of developing it so that the presenter can take control of the mouse is just a thought.
Well, it's something that I think we could look into for later on. In the moment, while we're all working from home, we're using our personal devices, and so there's some issues and challenges around that. But it's not. I think it's something that we can continue to look into. But yes, there's other challenges with lag time, so that's why we initially started that. But we hear you, and we understand the point.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Joe, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question on these natural roofs. Jeffrey, your firm, you and Dan have proposed quite a few lately. that a new subcontractor we have coming around town taking care of roof decks? What happens after about 10 years when things have grown and maybe it doesn't look like what it looked like when you first planted it?
Well, the California Building Code requires a maintenance plan as part of putting. Pardon?
Does require
Yes. Yeah. The CBC and the CRC actually stipulate a maintenance plan as part of the requirements for having a green roof. That includes, I think it's twice a year maintenance and the requirement of the homeowner to remove debris, dry and dead debris up there, as well as irrigation inspections to make sure that there's no debris in any of the irrigation heads. So it does require maintenance, but it's kind of no different from a ground garden. In fact, a ground garden can grow even larger and more overruly, just due to the extents that the root system can go versus a 6-inch tray. It can't get that much growth out of 6 inches of soil.
You answered my question.
Yeah, I'll weigh in on that as well. We're not proposing anything that's new or exotic. We're specifying companies like Live Roofs that have been around for a couple decades and have very robust systems and detailing assemblies, as well as warranties that last 30 years plus. And we also have our landscape architects specify plant mixes that need very low amounts of water and very low amounts of maintenance. But just like your garden right outside your house, it does need some maintenance over time. So a project like this, you'll have a gardener that comes to take care of your gardens on the ground and will also maintain your gardens on the roof.
What is the life of one of these roofs? One of these, has anybody thought about that, or you must have?
Generally, these types of, I guess, if we were to do a planting tray system, like something that Dan is talking about, the live roof, I guess, manufacturing, basically these are installed over a membrane. Kind of, instead of using like a membrane, roof is typically protected by something like ballast to extend its life. In this case, the live roof system actually extends the life of the membrane below it. And if we were to install a tray system in this case, if there was for some reason, death in a portion of the roof and the plantings themselves, they can be removed and replaced.
Right.
And one more benefit of a system like this is that we are now, through stormwater management, we have to capture 1 inch of every inch of water that falls upon this property. And this helps to kind of treat that on site as well.
We have 30-year roofs, Class A, Class B, Class C. How many years will this last? We're looking at a house.
This is a 30-year warranty.
It'll be warranted for 30 years, but you'll get a lot longer life out of a green roof than you will out of a roof that's not covered by a green roof. So, I don't anticipate these owners will ever have to replace this roof in their lifetime.
Good. Okay. And the other thing, I know we're not supposed to comment on the ADU that's going in. Could you just point out approximately where you're going to put it when it does get designed and permitted?
We don't have an exact location yet. We're working with the homeowners to really fine tune it because they don't know whether they want it to be something closer to the garage or if they want something closer to off the main house or if they want it in the meadow. It's a vague game that we're working with them right now that we hope to have greater clarity on in the future. But as it stands right now, I can't point in any discernible location on the plan and say it's specifically here.
Right. Brian, should we know where it's going to make a decent
I don't know. Can Ellen or Ted, can you answer that question?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Great.
That's great.
Thank you. So the board's purview does not cover accessory dwelling units. They may be shown on SFDB plans for reference only, just as a grayed out shaded area, but the accessory dwelling unit itself is not subject to SFDB review.
But our review is the total property right now, and that total property includes a black hole. Let's call it a black hole right now, because nobody knows really where it's going. Before we make a decision that comes, or an approval and a decision that comes out of our board, should we know where that's?
Mr. Bautista.
Hold on. Mr. Sweeney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Joe. Just to get at your question, yes, we have no purview over the ADU. We generally do not have purview over its location, although we have purview over any outdoor landscaping hard surface up to the wall of the ADU.
Okay.
I haven't been told any different by staff. That subject has come up several times now. So we do have purview up to the wall where it's located. Now, in this case, the owners have not decided yet whether they want an ADU and where it's going to go. So that's an entirely separate application. It's outside our purview under that condition. So we're not allowed to sit here and speculate where it may go, not go, et cetera. If it was shown on the application and a location, we might have had some say about the landscaping around it. But since it's not indicated on the plans, there is no discussion.
All right.
And Mr. Chair, board member, just to add to that, the board is, or I'm sorry, the applicant is not required to have the ADU plans shown as part of this application.
No, I understand that. I totally understand. I'm just saying that we're looking at the whole project right now, and in the past, and I'm understanding we have an ADU that's a ghost, and that ghost is just walking around, and one of these days that ghost will appear. And yeah, I'll leave it right there because there's a lot of questions there. Go ahead. I'm finished.
That's fine. I appreciate your question, Joe. It is a little weird. I agree. So anyway, Robert Richards, do you have any questions?
Yeah. One question is that home that's to the east of your guys' project, and maybe the other one that's to the northwest. I'm just wondering, are those 2-story buildings, or are there other 2-story
buildings? Has 2-story elements, but I honestly can't determine whether it's really tall 1-story or really short double-story elements. And the one to the north of us is in fact a 2-story building. If you go to page 3 in the PDF, you can see on the upper left-hand corner where you show the existing house and the north neighbor, that in fact is a 1.5 and 2-story structure up there.
Okay. And then if you look at your guys' site plan here, I'm assuming that most of
page 7.
The trees that are shown kind of in the middle that were along that existing driveway, those are all existing trees. And then
that is correct.
Maybe I'm just trying to ascertain where you're proposing new trees. Is it mostly around the pool area?
New trees around the pool area and new trees along the eastern property line. Right now, there's not enough landscape buffer between this residence and the property to the east. The property to the east has pool equipment pretty much right in that side yard setback. So we need visual as well as sort of sound buffering along that property line right there, kind of right at the width of the main house. But we are proposing to keep that whole area of trees in the middle, no disturbance there.
I'll weigh in on that a little more too. The privacy is really important to these clients, as it is to most clients. But the property has this really special feeling of being secluded up there, and we want to maintain that. right now, from Seacliff as you approach, you get a little shot down the driveway, a little view window towards the house. We want to close that window. And I think when we do with a couple new trees, the house is going to be essentially invisible from Seacliff. You know, the house sits lower than the street. We've done really low horizontal architecture. So we don't want to be even in our second story volume, we don't want to be able to see the street, see the neighbors to the north, and we don't want them to be able to see us. So that's all, with a couple little view window exceptions, that's almost already the case with that heavy tree line that's on our northern property line. But we think we can enhance it to the point where we have, you know, we're essentially invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those were my questions. So thanks for the response.
Board Member Sweeney, have any questions, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see, we can stay on this drawing for a second. So as I understood your description, this is one legal parcel. It's not two parcels, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then could you, Timmy, could you go in closer to the pool? I can't read the drawing on my little screen. Yeah, down in there. So is there, what are your thoughts? I know you haven't created a landscape plan yet. What are your thoughts about how folks are going to get from the main house to the pool? Is there going to be a series of trails, hard surfaces? What are you thinking?
Yes, we are proposing new gravel pathways. There's two ideas that we're currently working through right now. One is the gravel pathway, and the other is what we're calling the mowed meadow. So if this was to be, as proposed, a naturalized meadow between the pool and the edge of the house, we're interested in the idea of just having a mowed portion of that meadow facilitate the path to the pool area so that it just feels like there's low grass and then there's that soft edge up to taller grass that is unmowed. We like the idea of this pool feeling like it's completely surrounded essentially on the four sides by tall meadow grasses. So when you're in it, it feels like a watering hole as opposed to a pool with hardscape.
Okay, and then I don't see it yet, but I'm suspecting that at some point your client might consider they might need a cool cabana structure of some sort for a shower, a place to change, place to hold some sodas or whatever. Has that been in the thoughts yet?
A cabana at the pool, there's only been the discussion of maybe needing a bathroom over there, but the house isn't that far away. It's something that's where they're considering if they value that at the pool area. Okay. There's definitely at the garage area, we're proposing an outdoor shower enclosure and a place to hang up like wetsuits and surfboards.
Okay. And then on the property lines themselves, are there fences there now?
There is a fence on the east property line, or sorry, the west property line. There's a fence. There's a fence along most of the north property line. And you come down, there's an existing gate. And then there is a fence along this property line here. And then there's a secondary sort of post and beam wood fence somewhere right in this meadow here. And then there's I believe it's a site wall from the neighbor along the east.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is a lot of these projects that we see in the Bramer Ranch area, they typically either are going to repair and hold on to existing fences, some are chain link, some are wooden, but also typically on the street frontages or the roadway frontages, we see new high fences or walls being proposed and entry gates, etc. So have you thought about, I thought you may have described it, but have you thought about what that's going to look like? Is it a stucco wall? Is it a wood?
So if you zoom into the site plan, we have given that some consideration with our landscape architect. Just for everyone's reference, the clients have retained Rob Madej to do the landscape design for the project, and we are working with him to establish a cohesive site plan for the landscape. Something that Rob brought to the table that we believe in is a fence that can kind of not be super straight. And I don't want to, we're not talking about curves, but it responds to some existing trees that are already there along the property line and along the easement to give it a slightly irregular shape along Seacliff, which I think is pretty charismatic for the area and helps alleviate any kind of concerns that someone may have with, you know, a super tall, flat structure right on the street front that doesn't feel friendly at all.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question on the site plan. There's a little rectangle shown on the ocean side of the house. And I can't read that. Yeah, right down in there. What is that?
Outdoor fire pit. Something
okay.
that we're considering is just like sunken into the ground 18 inches and a fire pit looking out.
Okay, great. So 2 more areas I'd like to look at. I'd like to go to the house, but before that, can we go to the aerial photograph?
Aerial photograph is page 5.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. If we can zero in on, see, that is perfect. So the White House with the white wall is the one at the north end of the property, and it appears, given your little red line, it looks like it's almost right on the property line, or at least that wall is. Am I reading that right?
It's very close to the property line.
Okay. And then your firm is also doing a house, I think it's 1 or 2 houses down Seacliff, correct?
That is correct. 2 houses to the east.
So it's that one right there.
That is correct.
So you're going to do another glass house there. If Timmy, you can back up in the air a little bit. I just want, while I'm on this, to share with the board what's going on. We're also looking at a house, another glass house. If you can pull way up, Timmy. A little bit more. And yeah, right. Whoops. Right there. Perfect. Okay. So we have another glass house that's going to be proposed. In fact, I think it's coming next on our agenda today. That's at the end of, what is that? Yankee Farm Road. So there's one there. And then, just to remind you, we also looked at a 4-property split thing that's just on the other side of the Seacliff Road. So I just wanted to point out to my fellow board members, there's a lot of proposed changes coming, and we're looking at them in concert with this specific project. And then the last set of questions are on the 2nd floor roof deck. If we could go to the plan or the elevation, either one.
That's page 9 or 10.
Yeah, thank you. So the size of that deck appears to be about 400 square feet or so. Is that, am I about right? I can't read the dimensions, so I don't.
I think it might be larger than 400 square feet.
Okay.
It's 30 by 25.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's a little larger. And then the solar panels that you showed on the roof above the office,
Correct.
the other area, I was assuming that those are solar panels that'll be constructed in a sawtooth manner, not one big sloping plank.
I'm thinking flat to keep, to just, I mean, it's,
So
there's no shade around there.
It's be up in the air somewhat, correct? It's not flat on the roof, is it?
I was proposing flat on the roof, yes.
Generally, okay, because generally you see them sloped up a bit just because of the exposure issues. Okay, and I'm sure you'll come back and show that way.
We'll probably sacrifice the efficiency. They perform at a higher level of efficiency if they're angled at the ideal angle to the sun, which is in this latitude, it's like 34 degrees or something like this. But we'll probably sacrifice that efficiency and have a slightly larger array in order to keep the height down and have them be flat.
Okay. And then on the ceiling in the main part of the house where the living and the daily living area is, that appears to be 9, 10, 12 feet high.
The
All right.
ceiling in the main area is 11 feet. The ceiling in the
Oh, okay.
bedrooms is 10 feet, and the ceiling on the second floor is 9'6".
You made him freeze.
Yeah.
I think so. It looks like Mr. Sweeney is
great, thank
frozen.
you.
He's back.
Looks like you're
Um,
back. Mr.
okay.
Sweeney, sorry,
And
you
then-
were just frozen for a moment. Mr. Sweeney, if you
Okay.
could just restate the last thing you said, you
Okay,
froze for
sorry,
a moment.
I don't know what you heard last. Okay, I was just observing that the cantilever off that second floor roof looks a little bit long. I always do the 2/3, 1/3 rule of thumb, but you guys will work that out with your engineer. And then, let's see, we talked about the fence gates. The last thing is really probably more of a comment, but it's a question maybe to staff. On the green roof issue, if they're following state guidelines, then the question comes to me on the longevity. You talked about the state requirement for, ongoing maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm assuming that the enforcement is done at the local level. And I'm also assuming it's the building department that does that enforcement. Do we know, Ted or Alan, who's going to enforce that law? And is it a complaint-driven enforcement?
Board Member Sweeney, it would be the city fire department.
The city fire department. And
Yes.
is it a complaint-driven enforcement, or do the fire department periodically go look at these green roofs? Do we know how that works?
In general, with the city, enforcement is complaint driven. As far as I'm aware, the fire department does not seek out violations.
So that gets us into another neighbor versus neighbor issue. Okay. And then I'll save a green roof for another part of my green roof for a comment. But that's questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Fred. Jonathan, welcome. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I had a question. What would the temperature difference be with a green roof versus just a normal roof? Is there any SCE saving from having that kind of roof?
There is. You get quite a bit of insulating value out of the green roof. So a roof that has a green roof over it performs from an energy standpoint a lot better than a typical roof. But the values, of course, depend on primarily the thickness of the planting assembly. I don't know what those are off the top of my head, but we're going to have an extremely high insulation value of this roof.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, I know we keep asking questions. My question with that roof as well is, I'm going to assume that the people building this house, this is something they're going to live for a very long time, probably, and it's probably their retirement home or something. But if you were to sell this house, the new owners would have to have, I mean, this is just a question to educate myself. Do they have to sign an agreement or something to say that to maintain the roof? Because it's not like a normal roof that just sits there. You literally have to take care. It's a living thing. Kind of an interesting situation.
The performance of the roof, all the essential functions, fire protection, waterproofing, do not depend on the vegetative material. All those functions are served by a PVC membrane which resides under the planting trays. So in the worst case scenario, which is plants die, it doesn't affect anything related to the performance of the roof in any way. But I'll tell you, these homeowners are investing a substantial amount of money in this project, and the green roofs is not a cheap thing.
Right.
It's something that they volunteer to do because they love the way that looks. They think it's great for the neighbors. When you have houses way up the hill that look down on this, it's really nice to look at. It helps fulfill some of our sustainability goals by filtering water and helps fulfill our civil engineering requirements. So it's a really great thing for the project. if they sold the house and a new buyer didn't like that green roof and didn't want to take care of the gardening, they could replace it with another type of roof, and they'd come back to you guys to get the replacement roof approved.
Well, it actually sounds like a great opportunity to have, think about having a seminar or some kind of program to educate architects in this area about green roofs, because that's very interesting. And clearly we're kind of ignorant about it. And it sounds fascinating, and especially on the points you bring up about it. So anyway, so with that being said,
it's a great product. And, we as a community are really lucky to have homeowners who've got the resources and the ambition and are bold enough to do this, because you don't get it a lot of places. In a lot of places you get shingled roofs or metal roofs, which don't look as nice, and they don't contribute to keeping the air cool and performing the sustainability function. So we're so lucky to have clients that are willing to do this.
good point. All right, thank you. So with that, I'll bring it back to the board for comments, and I'll go down the list again. Lisa, do you have comments? If you can unmute yourself, please.
Yes. Can I ask one final question before I comment?
Sure.
The trees near the pool, can you tell me what sort of trees that grove is? This says grove of trees by swimming pool.
Right now, we're working through with Rob Madej, the landscape architect, whether we want something that feels really native to that environment. So there were ideas of doing something that were like loquat trees that have beautiful, lush green leaves and offer a bunch of shade, so that there doesn't need to be a permanent shade structure. Like shade by trees is a really unique and wonderful way to grab shade by the pool. People were throwing out olives for the coloration and the beautiful trunk structure. And especially since olives tend to look really good in a gravel setting. But they're definitely intended to be a tree that's like a height of about 14 feet, 16 feet at most, provide year-round shade, and just feel really comfortable around a pool environment. So not pine, not like, any kind of pine tree, or I don't even think an oak would be preferable there, because they're really messy by the pool and they get really big. So something smaller, that 14-foot range.
Okay, well, thank you. I look forward to seeing what Rob comes up with. Then on to my comments. I think this could work very well in this area. And I'm excited about another green roof going in. I would like to see more of that in our community if possible. So I'd be supportive of that. I don't have many comments about the architecture. My only other comment would be that the access to the pool, if kids are running back and forth, if you're mowed meadow, if you have things like Achillea and you're mowing that's still really sharp on bare feet, and running on gravel is pretty painful too. So if I'm good, I just thinking about running back and forth between the pool
Barefoot, just getting little thorns in your feet. Yeah, we definitely want to avoid that.
Yeah. Okay, that would be my comment. Thank you.
Board Member Farrell, do you have comments?
It's an incredible project, and that lot is beautiful. And I am in support of the green roof as well. So those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, comments?
I think this is a nice project. I'd like to see it develop more with a little bit more detail on the siding and the wood sliding screening. I'm game for for different architecture, and that's what Santa Barbara's getting. And Anna Kappa Architect is doing a good job of providing us with all kinds of different architecture which fit the locations, and this fits this location. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert, any comments?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on a Joe here that I agree that this style of project fits into the area. I think the choice of using like weathered materials and the contemporary styling of the home is appropriate. The home is, pretty small relative to the site. I don't think it's irresponsible in terms of the size of it. I would say the layout of the site, having the pool far away from the home sometimes makes it not really so often, but it also makes it its own destination. So I know sometimes parents with kids are less inclined to let their kids go swim in a pool if they can't see them, but maybe your clients have already considered that. And my only other concern was the neighbor to the north, by placing this pool in front of kind of where they're looking out over the ocean, and you guys are proposing trees around it. I would just, encourage you to share your ideas with the neighbors and make sure everybody's on board with what's happening there. And I understand you can't guarantee their public views, but it's better to be kind of open about it and try to work that out together. So, but in general, I give positive comments. I support the project. I look forward to a more developed landscape plan, and I'm sure you'll bring that at the next meeting. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Robert. Board Member Sweeney, comments, please.
Yeah, let me just follow up on the green roof thing. Just to let the applicant know, over the weekend, I was looking at plans that were apparently before the Planning Commission last Thursday, I think, well, no, it may have been 13th of July, where the fire department has introduced new mapping for the entire city for a high fire hazard area. And I recall looking at that map that this area was going to be allocated for a high fire hazard coastal area, including this bluff area and everything on the ocean side of Cliff Drive in this area. So that's something you might want to investigate. Maybe you've missed that because you've already applied and it's not retroactive once it's.
Can you hold on a second? We've got a bad connection with you.
But you might want to check with staff to make sure you're not going to be subject to that call. What's that?
Pardon my interruption, Mr.
Hello?
Sweeney and Chair Miller. So,
Hello?
Mr. Sweeney, your audio, and I think you're having some internet connectivity issues. So some of your audio is cutting out. One way that you can address this is by turning off your webcam. Or you can try exiting and coming back in, but if you turn off your webcam and keep your audio on, it might not take up as much bandwidth. I know that's not as, it's a little more difficult, so you'll have to let the chair know when you wish to speak.
Okay, so it's still my turn, Mr. Miller. I turned my camera off, so can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can hear you, but you're still going in and out.
Hear me better?
No, it sounds like you're having some real audio issues or connectivity issues. I recommend, Mr. Sweeney, that you look at your GoToWebinar control panel.
Weird. Yeah, now you're falling away.
You go from computer audio to phone call audio. And if you call in using your phone, if you switch to phone call, all the phone numbers that you need to dial will show up. So that's under the audio tab. And it's also listed in the email that you received to join. So you can also leave and come back and join that way if that's easier. And Mr. Chair, I might just proceed in the meantime.
Okay,
It looks
Fred,
like he's trying to switch. You might want to come back to him once he gets all the numbers dialed.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, my comment would be that probably 15 years ago, the San Francisco Museum of Art did a green roof project. And there was major press on it, major controversy, but I think we could learn a lot from it because they did go ahead with the green roof. That's the San Francisco Museum of Art out in Golden Gate Park.
All right, thank you. Well, my comments are a couple things. The property being large enough, and as far as an already established neighborhood, this is pretty eclectic, and I think the designer has been extremely sensitive in terms of visual impact and the client. And architect, if you could speak to this, it seems to me like the goal is to have this kind of disappear into the landscape. Seems like that's kind of the goal, that it's like this very unobtrusive type of architecture that sort of disappears. I actually do know there's a very modern contemporary home up by the Mission, and you don't see it anymore because the landscape has matured. It's like there's these two classic Mediterranean homes, and then there's this field of greenery between it, but then you suddenly see some flat roofs, but you realize it's kind of like vanishing behind landscaping, which I think is kind of extraordinary and challenges my biases and opinions about modern architecture. But Fred's back. Do you want to continue your comment?
Yeah, I'm on the telephone. Can you hear me better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I guess just to finish my comments to the applicant, you should probably check the Planning Commission and the Fire Department's new designated maps and then work with staff to find out if because you've already filed, you may have bypassed that challenge. But the map I saw indicated all of this was going to be changed to high fire hazard area. And then my other comment is about the compatibility with the neighborhood issue. As you know, most of Braemar Ranch, the homes originally were like the one that's going to be torn down. They were single-story ranch style, low, pitch roofed houses, and we're slowly seeing all of those, or not all of them, but many of them changed. We have approved one or more very contemporary flat roof homes in the Braemar Ranch area, which is part of this. And there is some Spanish style and some craftsman style. So slowly, house by house, we're changing the look of the neighborhood. But as long as we're aware of that, I don't see a big problem. But we should be pretty clear in our motion for PDA when we get there that we do recognize that, and that we're careful about what we designate as the neighborhood. And I would just propose as a note for right now, because I'm assuming we're going to try to give this PDA at its next visit if it comes back with a conceptual site plan or a landscape plan, that we're going to define the neighborhood as the area above Cliff Drive down to Yankee Farm Road and up to Braemar Drive to the edge of the cliffs towards Ewing's, towards Ewing's Park. Anyway, that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. So they're here for comments only. I guess that's correct. Ed?
Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct. This is a concept review. And I just had a brief comment before the motion is made. In addition to the comments on what we've reviewed so far, the applicant is requesting an administrative exception to fence height standards along the front lot line. And this is a staff approval. The board doesn't have the purview to grant this approval. However, staff does appreciate the board's comments on the aesthetics of the proposed wall. So feel free to incorporate that into the motion.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Now that you brought that up, I can't remember it. Are there drawings of that? Of the wall? In the elevations?
That
it
is
climbing?
correct. On page 13, we're showing basically it's a 6-foot high naturally weathering wood fence along the property line. And because it's along the property line and 6 feet high, needs a minor zoning exemption.
So it's white in the drawing, so we're supposed to kind of.
That's correct. Well,
Weathered wood or.
Yeah, the annotation is for weathered wood. Our apologies, this is concept. We're trying to, so you see little vertical lines right there.
Okay, that's
Naturally
great.
weathering cedar or similar.
Got it. All right.
And the reason we're providing it at 6 feet is for obviously privacy and security, but even more than that, it's to be consistent with the neighborhood. Our neighbors in that neighbor and even immediately next door to us have walls like this.
Correct.
So, and like Jeff mentioned, our landscape architect is going to be coming back to you at PDA with some ideas for this wall about creating greater levels of transparency and varying the shape of it, which I think they're really exciting to us. I think you guys are really going to like the development of what you see when that wall comes back to you. I think calling it a wall is mischaracterizing it. I think
it's a fence,
a semi-transparent barrier that will provide some level of security.
I'd also like to point out that there is currently a chain link fence in this location, so we would like to think of this as an improvement to the existing fence along that property line as well.
Great. Appreciate the information. Thank you. Ted, did you have something else to say?
No, Mr. Chair. No, I did not. I was standing by in case there are any questions. You may proceed.
Okay, great. So if the presenter has no more comments, I will bring it back to the board for an entertaining a motion for comments only. Jan, would you like to make a motion?
I would.
Thank you.
So I would like to give this project support. I think that the design of your home blends really nicely with the natural topography and especially with the green roof. I'm very supportive of that. I just hope that the designation, whether this is in a high fire area or what, you'll need to find that out, whether you can actually do it here or not. I think it's a very good idea that you share your ideas, especially about the trees that you plan to plant and how tall the home is going to be with your neighbors. When you come back to us, I would love to see a more detailed color board of what this concrete panels are going to look like, and also the exterior wood screening. We'd also like to see a full landscape plan, including what the plants are that are going to be on the roof. And I'm in support of the 6-foot high fence at the front lot line and excited to see how the variations are going to be laid out. And this should come back to the full board.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Lisa. Does the maker of the motion want to comment something about the fact that it's 90% FAR? That we accept that for the circumstances around?
Sure. Well, I think that the size of the lot is so large, and that even though the FAR is at 90%, the home is not going to overpower this lot.
All right, thank you. All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, this is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So let's move on to item number 2, 3239. This is a continued item. Can you read into the minutes, please, Lisa?
Yes. Let's see, I need to reduce the screen so I can see everything. Just a moment.
And do we have minutes, Ted, as well?
Mr. Chair, yes, we do.
Yeah, if Lisa could read the minutes as well.
Okay, for the previous motion had the following comments that 1, to the applicant return with definitive information such as site sections or other methodologies in order to demonstrate the project's relationship to public views from homes across Cliff Drive to the north. 2, applicant shall demonstrate a preliminary conceptual landscape plan so that the board can understand what landscaping will remain and what will be introduced. Show any anticipated road paving finishes. 3, return with an alternative to the glass railing on the roof deck and on the deck off the master bedroom. The 4, board encourages the use of planters rather than glass railings. 5, return with an understanding of the transparency of the glass at the second floor. The board encourages the designer to look at options that would mitigate a lantern effect, especially from the second floor. 6, applicant shall review the floor-to-floor heights of the project and also clarify the acceptability of the roof garden over the garage area. The board is open to the concept, but doesn't want to encourage it if it's not approvable. 7, the applicant shall return with a clarification of how acoustics will be addressed in the pool area in adjacent to the eastern property. 8, show window locations on the 2 adjoining properties in relationship to window openings of the proposed project. 9, return with the concept of how exterior lighting will be handled. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you went out a little bit, but you're
Okay.
keep going.
10, provide more delineation of the existing bluff top area that will remain and how it will be engaged with the area to be landscaped as part of this proposal. Study reducing the FAR to be closer to 85%. The motion was passed 6-0 on, I'm sorry, whatever the previous review was. I don't see.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Hi, Steve. You'd like to present your how you would address the minutes? That'd be great. Thank you. Yes,
And
Ellen.
part of my interruption, Mr. Chair, so I'm going to ask Mr. Fort, I think when you turned on your, I'm going to mute you, Mr. Fort. So we're picking up feedback from your audio. There's something, your office is like the Bermuda Triangle. We've already figured this out. So you're going to have to call in by phone. And if you just go from computer audio to phone call and dial all of the numbers, it should get you in. So Mr. Chair, if we could just wait another minute until Mr. Fort is able to connect. And we will be able to begin. Otherwise, it'll just echo everything that, that we say.
And Mr. Chair, in the meantime, I've allowed Dale Weber and Dan Murphy to enter the meeting. They should be popping up soon here.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Weber.
Welcome.
We also expect to have a Michael McGowan. He's our landscape architect. If he could be allowed to present as well.
So since we're all up here, I want to bring up something that I heard occurred, and I want to apologize because I made a comment, I think the last time you were up, that came across wrong. I didn't mean it to come across the way it did. But I just want to apologize. Just I was sort of trying to underline the fact how weird it is to build in Santa Barbara. And I think that's about all I want to say about that.
So part of my introduction, this is Ellen Kokende again. I have, Steve, in order to get your audio working, you need to enter your audio PIN number. And I've sent it to you a couple of times, and I can send it, I just sent it again. In order for you to be able to speak, you have to enter that PIN number, and then you'll have live audio.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay, now we can hear you. You're connected.
Sorry about that. My bad. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Steve.
I just wanted to dive in real quick at the beginning, and then I'm going to hand off to Dan. I know we have limited time. Off to Dan and Mike. As you guys know, this is our second visit. We're looking for your support because we do need to go to the Planning Commission to get a coastal development permit based on our location being in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. We need to take the project to the Planning Commission. Just real quick, we are at 85% of the FAR, not requesting any mods. Another highlight, I think, is also that the building or the proposed residence is a foot lower than it was previously. And Dan and Michael, I think, have really provided some great diagrams in terms of neighborhood compatibility, views, the windows on the neighboring properties, the items that you requested. And I think it really shows that they have a concise design as you look at how it sits on the off the edge of the block, back off the block. I think it's a really concise, clean project based on in comparison to some of the other residences. I just think it's a pretty simplified project up there. And I'm going to hand it off to Dan and let them go. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. I just want to point out, we did send over as part of the minutes, we responded to each of those line items in particular, and we can, just to make the best use of my time, I thought I would refer us to the diagrams that we had prepared for the meeting, and then afterwards we can refer to item by item what we had addressed. So if you don't mind going to sheet A, please.
It's going to be page 16 of the PDF.
So there we go. We can start with this one. This is our neighborhood compatibility study. So this is showing all the adjacent homes along Cliff Drive. On the upper portion, what you're seeing is the massing of the buildings from an aerial view. So you can understand how our massing relates to that of the neighboring properties. Down below, what you see is a diagram that indicates in elevation how our project relates to the neighborhood. So from a compatibility standpoint, we're pretty hopeful that this diagram does a pretty good job of showing that we're not maxing out in a similar way that some of the other neighboring properties have as far as the mass of our building and the square footage, and that it's relatively modest in comparison. As Steve pointed out, we were able to review the way that we had calculated our FAR and notice that we had an error in how we calculated that. That in conjunction with modest adjustments to the garage and other architectural elements, we basically we're now at the 85% FAR. And also, as Stephen mentioned, what we did, as opposed to adjusting floor to ceiling heights, which were at the appropriate proportions based on what we were looking for, plus well below the allowable building height, what we did to address the concern of just massing from a vertical standpoint is that we actually lowered the topography, or we're going down to closer to the existing grade. We had initially developed a somewhat of a pad for the residents to sit upon, and we've lowered that down to help mitigate the massing. And then I think probably be easier if we move to sheet C, and I'll continue to speak on neighborhood compatibility on this one as well. So this diagram speaks to both landscaping, but primarily what I wanted to reference on this, there was a request to show a site section so that we could understand the property's relationship to public view. And you can see that the property sits up on top of the knoll and it dips down significantly as you get down to Cliff Drive. And if you scroll back up to the top of the sheet, what you'll see are actual aerial. There's on the left, view number 4 is an aerial view of Yankee Farm Road. And we're pretty much right on axis with that road. So you can see currently as you're going down there, there's the existing foliage buffers the property completely from the public right of way. And then image number 3 is actually up at the stop sign once you connect over to Cliff Drive. So we've got a natural buffer there, which we intend to keep and enhance. But from a visual standpoint, it's a very minimal impact from a neighboring standpoint. And then if we want to go to sheet B, now, in this diagram, we're kind of moving closer into understanding the adjoining properties. So what we mapped out here on both the east and west properties are where the existing windows are, the views from the neighboring properties are, and how they relate to our property. In the aerial view on the upper left and right, what you see is the neighboring property to the east, and the building is set pretty much right up against the side yard, and with their existing hedge, and it's basically secondary spaces that view out, and they screen their own view from our property naturally. And then the images just below the site plan help illustrate where there's 2 existing windows on the neighboring property, and what the diagrams that we're showing below were the elevation of our residence with the layering of green. The lighter green actually indicates the landscaping that is on the neighbor's property, and then the darker shade of green represents the existing trees that we have on our property, which will help buffer and provide privacy. And basically, I'm making reference to many of the diagrams that we put together to help illustrate the neighborhood compatibility. But to get into all the remaining questions, I can go kind of line item by line item down your list of meeting minutes. And I guess,
yes.
Okay. All right. So item number 1, return with definitive information such as site sections. So I think we just went over that. That's the sheet 1C, and we got into that with the Yankee Farm Road aerial photos and street view. The applicant shall demonstrate a primarily conceptual landscape plan. And on that, we can go to sheet 2C, or sheet C. And Michael, do you want to speak on behalf of this?
Yeah, just quickly, we've identified areas that are to be planted, and we've identified areas that are where our planting is not extending because of the bluff setback. Those you see by the orange lines marked on the right side of the screen. And then we've also identified the existing trees, which we are planning to retain. And then, the rest of it is new paving and new planting, which we've identified.
Well, I
Okay,
just want
and
to highlight that all the trees on the left side of that, as you look at it on the screen, are existing to retain, correct, Michael?
Correct. Yeah, and even the understory there, which we don't really want to work under those existing oaks as much as possible. So, you know, we haven't like gone down there and actually evaluated each individual plant, but the idea is to maintain as much of the undergrowth as possible, because that's the best thing for the oaks, and then to supplement it with native species that do well under oaks. For example, like a Ribes speciosa or something similar. But to do that in a way that is sensitive to where the actual root structures of the oaks are.
okay, I'm going to move us quickly through to sheet A300. And this is in response to the glass railings. And just simply put, we studied the aesthetic and we were proposing going with a cable rail in lieu of the glass guardrails. And yeah, in both of these elevations here, you can see. So what was glass rail on elevation 2 on the upper deck, and then glass rail above the living space down below, which is a deck above, that's all gone to the cable rail. You also encourage the use of the planters in lieu of the glass rail. So we already had concepts in place of planters up on the roof where we could engage them or coordinate them with the cable rail. So and I think ultimately the intent was that we move away from the glass rail, and that's what we're willing to propose this alternate for. Return with an understanding of the transparency of the glass on the second floor. The board encourages the designer to look at an option that would mitigate the lantern effect, especially from the second floor area. So what we did is we studied this, or we looked into alternate methods of providing natural light into the spaces. And if you scroll down to the elevation just below this, let's see. That one doesn't, I guess, I'm sorry, if you can go to the next page, 301. So what you see, like the main roof on the second floor, the horizontal line, the bay of windows that you see below that, there's spaces that are basically on the south and north side are actually bedrooms. The spaces in between are all secondary spaces. And what we looked into is methods to provide alternate natural lighting into those spaces. And what we realized is that if we went with a more traditional method of including a window that's the 32 or the 42 inches off of the finished floor, there's less ways of mitigating any light at night, which I think is your concern. And what our design inherently does is actually we've recessed that band of windows back from the facade and extended the roof line out so that in perspective, you're mitigating the direct visual, the sight line to the source of any light. And I also want to point out that those are primarily secondary spaces that, you know, they're closets and bathrooms, which don't intend to be having their lights left on. Another item that I wanted to point out is that sun control is also a very important thing for the client. So each of these rooms will be designed with roll down shades, which would also act as a screening method. Item number 6, applicant shall review the floor to floor heights of the project and also clarify the acceptability of the roof garden above the garage. The board is open to the concept, but does not want to encourage it if it's not approvable. The floor to floor heights I addressed, and the way we approached what I believe is the intent is to lessen the mass by lowering the footprint of the building down a foot. That way we're able to, I think, meet the goal of the critique without compromising any of the actual floor to ceiling heights, which were very important to the client. And then in regards to the The green roof, we did look into that, and currently, as far as to our knowledge, we are not in the high fire zone, so we are able to move forward with this design. Number 7, applicant shall return with clarification of how acoustics will be addressed in the pool areas in adjacency to the eastern property. If you could refer to sheet A400, please. So you see on the upper diagram, or section 2 on the upper left. So we've addressed this by basically creating the wall that you see along the property line. We've also got planting that would precede that, and we've moved the pool, or the pool is situated as close to the building as possible in the effort to mitigate any noise pollution to the neighbor. We also want to point out that on the neighboring property, they have their line of hedges, and the building is set back with secondary spaces along that line with actual fairly minimal openings in that regard. Item number 8, show window locations on the 2 adjoining properties. And that was the diagram that I went over on, it was, I believe, diagram B. Sheet B.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Murphy and Mr. Chair. The presentation timer has ended at 15 minutes. Mr. Chair, you may extend the presentation time at your discretion. Just let us know what you'd like to do.
I would prefer you to extend it because he's going down the minutes, and that's very helpful. So yes, if you can continue, that'd be great.
Okay, we only got 3 more left. Return with the concept of how the exterior lighting on the building will be handled and how landscape will be handled. For this one, if we could go to sheet C. For the most part here, I mean, again, we haven't really gotten into a full level of design. I think the intent was for you to understand our concept of how we would approach lighting on the property. And this diagram basically indicates individual lighting and the enhancement of the trees so that you get the procession up to the home, and then how we would be lighting certain landscape features upon arrival. Outside of that, there isn't any real intent to, we don't have further development of the lighting at this stage. And we're happy to address any questions on this as we get into it. Item 10, provide more delineation of the existing bluff top area that will remain and how it will be engaged with the area to be landscaped as part of the proposal. So also on this diagram here, you can see, and I can allow Michael, I think, to elaborate a little bit more on this one.
Yeah, you can, if we go back up to the plan, although this shows it as well, you know, there's a series of 3 lines. One is the actual bluff edge, and then there is a 20-foot bluff setback of any disturbance. And then there's the 50-foot setback, which is the 70-year coastal bluff development buffer. So the 70-foot, or sorry, the 50-foot is for the architecture, and the 20-foot is for, you know, disturbance. So as you can see by the way that we have pulled back the lawn, we're really trying to not touch that area to the extent possible. That being said, part of that area is currently planted with lawn, so we will need to go in and replant those areas with something that is appropriate to the bluff to help hold soil in place, and also to, you know, maintain the character of the planting, I think, is what's important. Our goal is to not have this be an ornamental planting zone, but feel like it's actually part of the bluff that comes up, you know, around the home. And that's true of all the landscaping, so.
And then lastly, this one is in regards to the FAR and the desire to get closer to 85%. And that was an item that I addressed at the beginning of the conversation. So that could be referenced on the sheet A again. And the numbers and the actual calculations have been updated on our sheet A0. With that, last comment is we actually have been contacted by a handful of the neighbors and with actually wishing to reach out to our client in regards to this project. And so far we've got nothing but encouragement. And I believe the hope was actually that they were going to be writing to you in that regard so that you could actually get some of the responses from the neighbors. They've had a chance to review that, the drawings and the proposal, and feel very comfortable with it. And with that, I open up to any questions that you might have.
Great, Daniel, thank you. So I'm going to bring it back to Ellen or Ted. Did we get emails, speaking of which, or does anyone like to comment?
Mr. Chair, we did not get any written public comment for this item. However, I can attest, as the applicant stated, that I did receive an email basically asking who the designer was, just for the record. And if you are an attendee and you would like to speak on this item, please click the raise your hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak once we call on you. Currently, I don't see anybody who wishes to speak, so we can move on to questions from the board.
Okay, all right, thank you, Ted. I'll bring it back to the board, and I'll just go down the list. Lisa, James, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question would be, now you've lowered the plate height by 1 foot. Could you give us the final plate height now?
Yeah, if you go to sheet, let's see. It's probably easiest on the 300s. So on here, you can see actually what we've done is that the pad that the building sat on in relation to the existing grade, we've just lowered that down 1 foot. So it's a little bit hard for me to see on the screen here, but essentially the floor to ceiling ratio remains the same, but the overall building height has gone down from 23 feet to 22 feet above the natural grade.
Okay, thank you. But that looks like it does not include the, I don't know if that's the green roof membrane that bumps up a little, or a parapet of some kind.
It's a flues. So there's, yeah, just flues for fire features.
Okay. My next question would be, how far is the pool from the neighboring property line?
Approximately 9 feet.
9 feet, okay. And then finally, just curious, are you aware of the dark sky compliant lighting requirements we have for landscaping?
We are, and as we said before, we haven't really designed it yet. What we're showing is an idea that where we'd like to put lighting. You know, we just took a broad brush approach and said, okay, we know we want to have lighting here, here, and here. We know that we might be able to have some uplighting in some places, but primarily we're going to achieve the same effects by moonlighting, which means to, you know, mount lights in the trees and have them, you know, cast lighting down. In all of our lighting, the idea is to make it very subtle. You know, so obviously there is, you know, ease of movement lighting that needs to happen, and also ambiance lighting. But we're for sure not intending to light this place up like a Christmas tree. But we do want to make sure that people don't drive off the road, for example. And we also want to make sure that people have a safe way to navigate steps. So a lot of the lighting that you see is geared towards that.
And we are aware of the uplighting policies that say when it's used, it's got to be limited. Fixtures need to confine the light of the fixture to the feature that's being lit, shielding, low intensity lamps, all that sort of stuff. But we're aware of the concern, yes.
Okay, well, I'll save the rest for comments, and those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Farrell, you have any questions?
I do. So you talk about lowering the entire building site. So that's 4,961 square foot of residence that's going to be dropped by 1 foot. I'm just kind of curious about what type of grading issue is going to be impacted on these bluffs up here with that amount of soil being removed. Our city council has been having some subcommittees to discuss grading ordinances recently. And so I would be very wary about that much grading next to the bluff. And I'm curious about how you guys address that.
So it was actually, we were raising the pad. So the idea is it was almost like a cut and fill. So areas that we would be removing earth, you could build up potentially to raise the pad. And the area in particular that we're talking about is the white zone, which is labeled the main residence. Not so much the garage area, but it's what the intent was is by having it was more both the procession up to the main residence, being slightly more dramatic by coming up, but then also by raising it up just slightly, you're enhancing your views out to the ocean over the bluff line. So what we're doing is basically lessening the amount of buildup that we're doing. So it's not an impact. We're not building down into the site. We're just building less up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you said you were going to be lowering the building by 1 foot.
Right. So, and what it is we're lowering the design, the proposed concept is going down 1 foot from what you previously saw. So originally we had, the max height was at 23 feet above the natural grade being at 170. And what we did is we build the first floor up from that. And what you can see, let's see, in the lower elevation, what you see is the existing grade.
Okay.
In the dashed. And then what we're proposing. So this is probably a little bit better of an indicator of what it is that we're trying to do. We're not building down, we're not going down into the existing grade to reach the height. We are actually always building it up, but we've built this up in respect to the existing, the maximum building height. So we've always been within that allowable envelope, but what we've done is just brought it back down a little bit, the whole mass of the building.
Daniel, can I add something?
Sure.
Hi, I'm Dale Weber. I'm the civil engineer on the project with Ashley and Vance, and I understand your concern, but what I'll add that I think will be helpful is I was actually really pleased when they came back and lowered it by 1 foot. It better matches the existing topography on the property today by lowering it 1 foot. Having it 1 foot higher, we were actually going to be bringing in fill to get it up higher. So it'll actually, I would expect it to reduce the amount of grading by lowering it this 1 foot.
Okay. That was my question. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Jan. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions?
Yes. I'm not muted. Here I am.
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm not, Jan, I'm just not sure whether the house went up, went down, went sideways or leftways or what. Seems to me black and white. You lowered the house 1 foot from what we saw last time, or you left it, or you raised it 1 foot. There's only 3 places the house could be. Got a long answer for did you lower the house?
Yes. Yeah. We lowered the house.
Okay, then yes, we don't need a We don't need a explanation that I don't seem to understand. The other question is, you keep showing an elevation with looks like a person in the middle to the right area. Is that the back of the house? Is that superimposed the house on the lot? Your elevation that you showed, not that one right there. Is that, re-educate me, is that the existing residence or that's the new residence?
This is the proposed residence.
That's the new residence.
Yes.
Okay, with a young, looks like a young lady superimposed on it. Okay.
The woman who actually modeled this image, I think that's pretty much her likeness there. So you can, it's one of our coworkers.
Very good. Okay. I think I asked the number of questions last time. I'm in agreement. I'm glad that I'll say that one comment for a comment period. I'm finished. I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Robert, do you have any questions?
Just a simple, quick question. The lawn that you're proposing on the edge of the bluff is like a traditional, like kick a ball around kind of lawn, or is that considered to be some type of like natural element in terms of what you would expect to be there? Or that's my question.
No, for all intents and purposes, I'd call that a traditional lawn. It is a play lawn, whereas everywhere else is meant to be planted and will primarily be more, short grass meadow. If I could characterize it with just a few words. But that's our one opportunity to actually have some play space.
Okay, that was my only question. Go ahead to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sweeney, do you have any questions?
My question is basically to Ted. It's a procedural question. On our action today, are we allowed to do project design approval, or do they have to go to Planning Commission first?
Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Chair, yes, this project will have to go to Planning Commission prior to receiving project design approval at Single Family Design Board.
Okay.
The process will be a submittal for a completeness review through the development application review team, then Planning Commission, then back to SFDB.
Okay, thank you. I will keep my other comments for comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ziegler, do you have any questions?
No questions.
All right, thank you. All right, I have no questions at this time either. So I'm going to bring it back to the board for comments. Lisa James, do you have any comments?
And it appears as if Miss James lost her audio connection. So I might come back to her. She might have just lost internet connection.
Okay.
So Mr. Chair, if you don't mind moving on.
Okay, no problem. All right. Board Member Farrell, do you have any comments?
The only comment I have at this time is that I appreciate that the glass rail was replaced with a cable rail system.
All right, thank you. Lisa, is that it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, my audio's back, sorry. My comment would be that appreciate the applicant answering a lot of our concerns, and that a lot of the uplights in the oaks, I think, could be pendulum downlighting, and that would reduce some of the light glare down there. And I'm not too sure about the irrigation on the play lawn, and I would hope that the applicant might find some other area to retain maybe, because that's a lot of water going on that slope. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, any comment?
Yes, I appreciate the fact that the applicant answered all of our questions and addressed them all, answered all our questions. Yeah, I think the house, I mean, we've been to the house a couple times now. And I think pass through the planning commission, what you have to do before you come back to us. I would support the project. Yes. I think it satisfies our criteria. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Joe, you kind of went in and out, but I think you're done. Mr. Richards, do you have any comments?
I appreciate that the applicants come back and address all of the previous comments. I think that the project is acceptable and should move forward. I share a minor concern about having that lawn up there on the, top of the bluff, but at least they're not proposing to put the pool there or something. So, it's a desirable part of the property, and maybe the applicant could come out with a clever choice of plant material there that isn't just a traditional lawn, but I'll leave that to them. And I support the project, so I give it positive comments. I'd like to see it move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney, comments, please.
Yes, one is I'd like to compliment the architect on responding to our lengthy list from its first visit. So I'm comfortable that this is in a position to receive project design approval with a conceptual landscape plan when it returns after the planning commission. I do want to, as I did with the previous applicant, let you know that the fire department is introducing new high fire zone maps. One of which that I saw indicates that this whole area will go to a coastal high fire hazard area. So you need to probably check with staff to see if you are going to get pulled into that conversation, or that because you've already made your application, you may not. So just something to check on your green roof issue. Let's see, I do greatly appreciate the cable rail. I took a walk this weekend down on Arroyo Burro Beach where you get below this site. There are a couple of lower homes where they did put glass rails in, and it's really bothersome. So I appreciate that effort and thank your client. I do clearly understand how the house got lowered. I think that's very helpful. And then finally, Ted, if an architect wants to know what the board looks for when it's trying to establish neighborhood compatibility, and certainly to address neighbors' concerns about public views, etc. These sets of drawings are a good example of what an applicant should prepare to address those issues, particularly the section site diagram and the other diagrams. I think it was on sheet C. So you could jot down a note that this particular application was an appropriate way to address the issues of neighborhood compatibility. And I understand and thank the client. I know this will cost extra money, but in Santa Barbara, as Brian pointed out, we go through great lengths because this board has to make neighborhood compatibility findings at the end of the day. And certainly that's what the Planning Commission will be touching upon when you visit Planning Commission after this meeting. Other than that, I have no other comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I appreciate that. Mr. Ziegler, do you have comments?
Fairly well, and I'm in favor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, my comments pretty much echo what was said before, so I am quite satisfied with the design of the house. And yes, I appreciate the fact that they listened to our comments and followed and when followed appropriately. Question I have for staff, just as my own edification, what is planning commission going to do? What is their determination? Like, why do they have to go to planning commission? I'm just curious to know why to do that.
Mr. Chair, this project requires a coastal development permit due to its bluff top location. If Kelly Broadison, the case planner, is available on this meeting, she might be able to answer in more detail than I can. However, it would just be a standard requirement for a house in this location.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, Fred, I can't
Hi,
get
Fred.
you any other way. Hi. Ken, I may have asked this the last time they were here. We've had a couple of projects that had to deal with the Coastal Commission's requirement for public view, scenic corridor. There's a new thing going on. We've got introduced it to another project that was over on Shoreline Drive. Does this project have to have the same review, or is that outside of this?
Mr. Sweeney, that is part of the California Environmental Quality Act, the CEQA determination for this project. That will be reviewed at the application completeness phase. And I believe Ms. Broadison could elaborate on that if you would like.
Please. If you could unmute yourself, that'd be great.
So, Ms. Broadison, we can't hear you right now. It looks like you're unmuted, but for whatever reason, you're not connected to audio. Can you try again?
Well, maybe not. I don't know. It's more of a question to, educate us as to the process. Ellie, can you hear us? Can we hear you? No.
Sorry about that. I'm just trying to figure out if we can get Kelly. Kelly, can you try to unmute yourself one more time, please?
It says
All
I'm
right.
unmuted.
Okay,
There
there
you
you go. Now we've got you now. If you don't mind responding to the board member's question.
Sure. See, you guys have been doing this a lot more frequently than I have, so I'm still getting used to it. Yes, this project will require a coastal development permit because it's in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone, which is par for the course for bluff-top properties. I think the property that Mr. Sweeney might be referring to had a view easement when when those lots were subdivided. This project, I don't think that that's the situation on this project, but once they submit their title reports and the DART submittal requirements, we can look into it in more detail.
Yeah, the only reason I asked is this also has Yankee Farm Road that intersects this site on the other side of Cliff Drive. So that kind of raised a flag for me to find out if that was under what they call scenic resources and visual quality policies of the Coastal Commission. So that's the only reason I asked.
Sure.
And
Good question.
whether that's a judgment of our board or whether that's a planning commission issue.
Yeah, but that's a good question, and we can look into that when it goes to DART. And as you know, this project will be returning to the Planning Commission. The Single Family Design Board prior to receiving PDA and final approval.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for that being that said, we'll move for a motion, and because it's still has to go before the Planning Commission, I guess it went positive comments, right? It can't be a motion for. What are our options here?
Mr. Chair, yes, you're correct. You may continue this item indefinitely to the Planning Commission for return to SFDB.
Okay.
And they would appreciate positive comments.
So comments only then. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Who would like to make a draft a motion? Hello? Did everyone leave? Someone on the board, I need to entertain a motion with comments.
I will make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Yes, the board would like to give this project positive comments and to move it forward to the planning commission. We appreciate the applicant reducing the FAR to 85%, changing glass railings to cable rails, providing us the conceptual landscape plan we asked for, reviewing the glass on the second floor and extending the overhang and moving the wall back, I believe, in order to shield any lantern effect. We appreciate the applicant reducing the plate height of the building a foot. And we would hope that the next time around, the applicant might consider downlighting the oaks. And I think that's it. We have positive comments on this project in general.
Thank you, Lisa. Do I have a second?
Second, it's Fred.
What's that? Oh, thank you, Fred.
It's Fred.
Okay, they're back. Okay, cool. So I have a second. Can I have a roll call, please, Mary? Unless there's discussion. Sorry, go ahead, Mary.
Okay, so we have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mary. So the time now is 5:14. Do you guys need to take a break or do you want to go to the next project? Okay, so we're gonna, okay, Jan says she needs a little break. So let's break and let's return at 5:20. just let Fred and
There's
Jonathan.
Fred.
There's Fred. Okay, great.
Yay.
So let's reconvene. Convene.
All right, and Clay and Leonard have let you in as panelists, so you should be able to share your webcams and your mics at this point.
All right, thank you. So this is a coming back for project design approval and final approval. So I will read into the minutes. The proposal is to demolish an existing 840 square foot, one-story, single unit residence with an attached 284 square foot garage and construct a new two-story, 3,156 square foot single unit residence with an attached 416 square foot garage and 35 square foot storage closet. A 1,080 square foot basement is also proposed. The site improvements include landscaping, walkways, and raised decks. The proposed total of 2,527 square feet of development on a 6,828 square foot lot in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone is 87% of the maximum floor area ratio. So project design is requested on July 22nd, 2020. The project received Planning Commission approval of a coastal development permit. PC Reso 004-20 project requires neighborhood preservation, hillside, and slope lot findings. Project was last reviewed by SFDB on March 2nd, 2020. Do we have minutes from the previous meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do. And staff has brief comments prior to hearing the applicant's presentation as well.
Okay, so those are the, so if when the applicants show their project, please go through the minutes, how you address those. So anyway, Ted.
Okay, just brief staff comments. This project is scheduled for project design approval and final approval today. However, it is only eligible to receive project design approval at this hearing due to outstanding Tier 3 stormwater management requirements. If the project receives final approval today, there's a possibility that it could require a review after final. So in an effort to help the applicant avoid that, probably the best thing to do would be to grant project design approval if appropriate, and then continue for final approval when we have the Tier 3 SWIMP requirements addressed.
All right, thank you. Hi, Clay.
There we go. How are you doing, guys? Good to see you again.
Hi.
Sorry for my my lighting. The sun has moved around to the west at my house, and so I'm completely backlit. So apologize for poor lighting in here. We're going to go through the project, and Ted, could you please bring up? Hold on, let me find the right file. It should say 200722_102 Santa Rosa. There you go. That's,
Mr. Aurel, are you referring to the plans file?
yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, then that one.
Yeah. Yes.
Is
okay.
on the screen.
You have it a different name. That's okay. Okay.
Yeah. And just a reminder
Thanks,
to
Ted. Appreciate that.
The board. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm having audio issues. Timmy Bolton is the staff member controlling the plans. He's doing a great job back there. Controlling the plans. So if you have any specific direction, just request so from Timmy. And also just a reminder to applicants, we have a timer here for 15 minutes for the presentation. We ask that you stick to that 15 minutes, and the chair may grant additional time at his discretion. And then keep in mind there is time for questions from the board when additional details can be fleshed out. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for recapping that for me, and thanks for getting us on the plans, Timmy. Appreciate it. So, Mr. Chair and board members, our project was before you on March 2nd, right before this shutdown that we've got. And we've proceeded to the Planning Commission, as was mentioned before. I have the minutes here, which have 3 particular items. The motion was continue to the Planning Commission with comments. Comment number 1, the board appreciates the articulations made to the south elevation to reduce the monolithic face presented at the previous meeting. Number 2, applicant shall return with a detailed landscape and irrigation plan. Number 3, the relocation of the southwest corner further back on the second story is appreciated. So most of these comments are pretty positive. As we move from single family design board to the Planning Commission, and we got unanimous approval there. So we're excited to move this project forward. We originally requested project design approval and final approval, but we then realized that there was a couple things missing on the tier 3 documentation and some other things that would prevent final. But we do have a set of drawings here that is about 69 pages long. I don't think we're going to get through that in 13 minutes and 50 seconds. So I'm going to run us through the architectural real quick. We have structural, mechanical, electrical sheets. If you want to peruse them on your own you can, but I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time there. And then we're going to go to the landscape architect sheet. And then at the end of the set, we have the tier 3 sheets that we won't worry about today because we need to change a couple things. So with that, we'll get going. I have labeled the page numbers that I want to start with. So we're on page 1, which is the title sheet. Let's move to page 9, please. This is the proposed site plan. And there's been a little bit of change to the site plan since you last saw it, mostly because we've really dug into, I froze up. I think I froze up there, huh? Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. You're good.
Okay, it froze up on my side, so I apologize.
Comments, okay, I can hear you just fine now.
Okay, awesome. There's a little change on the site plan. Mostly we integrated landscape architect. We've had some changes in the back deck. We've added a hot tub and an outdoor fireplace and a few other things like that. The front deck changed a little bit. On the architectural side, we slid the garage to the north a little bit, just to change the floor plan. It was a request by the owner. And so what that did is it pushed the driveway a little bit north. It actually allows us to save the street tree, which is near the label of Santa Rosa Place. There's a street tree there that we were proposing to relocate. That's it, perfect. And we're able to keep that. So, but we didn't really, it didn't change in size or anything. It's just a shift to the north. And we'll see on the elevations where that shows up differently. Next page, we'll go to page 12. Here's the first floor plan that is largely the same as what you saw before, except the garage has shifted north. That allows us to get washer and dryer, trash cans, and those sorts of things inside the garage. And we still maintain our 20-foot clearances. That's all maintained. The floor plan, other than minor interior design shifts and pulls and tugs, has not really changed since the last time you saw it. And then you can see the changes to the front deck and the rear deck, the addition of a hot tub and a little fireplace there kind of on the deck. So we'll go to page 14, please. So on this page, I'm just going to point out a couple things and we'll move on, but we added a trellis to the north side of the building over the doors there. And then we changed the roof element on the south, bottom left corner of the building where there's a trellis member there because we had a roof issue, and I'll explain that further when we get into the elevations. We'll now go to page 16. So the only real design change on here is the addition of the trellis member on the north side of the building, and then the trellis on the lower left corner of the building. And then we've indicated additional solar, so we've been working with our solar consultant. We've added more solar to the roof of the project. Next page, we'll go to page 17, which is the elevations. So this project, one of the things that we've been doing in our break since the last time we saw you, if you call it that, is we've been diving through wall sections and details and assemblies and all that. So the building hasn't fundamentally changed in height. It's still at the 23. The last time you saw it in March, it was 23'4" from grade to top of the building. And then now it's at 23'5". It got an inch taller somewhere. I'm not quite sure where that inch came in, but that just had us working with the floor assemblies, working with the roof assemblies, the structural engineer we brought on board to make sure we could really get the heights that the client really wanted. The clients both really wanted some good height inside the building and the ground floor because it's such a narrow building. So we were able to get the heights up and shrink the assemblies and really work on the roof framing element so that we can really keep the building, at about where we were last time, but get a little bit more volume on the interior. That includes vaulted ceilings in the upstairs bedrooms and things like that. That'll help with that as well. So the elevations haven't really changed. There may be a couple of things that moved here or there, but most of the windows are all in the same spot. The recess on the master suite is still there on the western side of the lower elevation, the left side upstairs. And then on the back, on the north elevation, there's a man door on the garage. That's a change just for access. We've added the trellis over the door, and you can see the solar panels on the roof, but largely this is pretty much what you saw last time, just a couple little tweaks here and there. We'll go to page 18, please. I wrote them all down, so I lost track of my thing here. So there we go, 18. So 18 on the proposed west elevation, you can see the garage door shifted over and we added a man door, number 112 there. So that's just a secondary access point for them. You'll see on the landscape plan that there's some fencing around here. So that's not a public entrance. It's not the front door. The front door's on the other side. And then we had this, where you see door 109, we had the roof of the garage coming way over, and the post and the railing and everything started just not working as we were studying this thing in 3D and spinning it around. So we opted to pull that back and just be over the garage area, and then put a trellis here over this little sunset porch, if you will, or breakfast porch that's off the kitchen. So that's a design change that showed up along the way. We think it's an improvement to the building, and we did add a couple windows upstairs in the master closet area. So you can see there's a little bit more light here on the western face, but compared to last time, it's virtually the same other than those two changes. And if we go down to the east elevation, that's lower on the page. Other than, there used to be a garage out of the back. There used to be a door out of the back of the garage. That's moved to the side. And the rest of this is in line with what you saw before. Next page, 21, please. So we've been really developing details with the interior designer and the contractor and the structural engineer. We've been able to shrink the assemblies. You can see in detail too. We're going with we got a high sound system, but we're going with a smaller member. So that was part of what we've been studying since the last time you saw us. We'll go to page 22, please. These up again. Just taking a little time here. These are just developing more details as we're working through the project. And then we'll go to page 25, please. Here we've got some materials. So we're looking at a standing seam copper roof, lap siding on the exterior, that was a smooth finish, James Hardy panels, natural cut sandstone for the patios in the front and the back, and then some lighting, downcasting gas lamps that they want to put on the house. Next page, please. Trying to speed myself up a little bit. Just examples of doors and windows. We're looking at a steel system for some of the doors and windows, and then maybe a clad system for the other upstairs windows. But in this color palette, the light whites, and lots of white, different whites, and then we're going to do a brick base with painted white brick, and then the chimney will be brick also. Next page, please. This is just information on our solar panels. I had added that in there. We can stop here for the architect side. We might need a couple more minutes, but if we go to page 58, then Margie, we can have you present the landscaping.
Hi all. Okay. So we're interested in it. We see in the upper left of this page an inspiration photo. This is sort of the vibe and the feel. They're not the colors or anything per se of the front yard fence. Actually, it'll probably be like that. We've got our open yard here. Oh, I'm working my cursor and you can't see it. You saw where the open yard is in that backyard area, and we've got our decking now. Thank you. That decking is all permeable. It'll be sand laid over the enchilada layers of drain rock and filter cloth and all that. We've got a fire pit outdoors. We've got a on the north side of that, thank you, and then off to the right side of that decking, the paving there is, we're seeing a hot tub. That hot tub is raised. And the square footage on that is, good size to fit the family, but still be, thank you, be economical, or be efficient. So 8 by 10 is the footprint of the tub, and 6 by 8 will be the interior. As we go around the house, we keep using the same paving everywhere. We change the paver size as we go along to suit different situations. We've got the plantings in the backyard are really slim. It's really, it's a green box that, we've greened up the perimeter fence, and we use that as that backdoor room, that outdoor room essentially. As we work around on the east side, we find ourselves walking through like a service area, and we've got the air conditioning unit there by the fireplace and the equipment for the spa. All of that's tucked outside of the setbacks are there inside. Thank you. And then we walk through a gate in towards the ocean there. Yep, you got it. And then we've got these same sand laid pavers that are in this basically shown as 1 by 2s, and 12 inch by 24 inch. And then where you see the pavers are shaded, those pavers are over concrete mortared and grouted. And the reasoning for that is just sort of super clean feet as you come in the front door. Also, we've got slope to deal with in that front yard. So as we walk from the front door there, which looks like it's the paving done as a T and shaded, we've got some steps to catch up along the slope, and we've got some a little landing. We've got some fencing around that front yard. Top of slope is shown sort of right at the boundary line there as a property, right on the property line is the top of slope. It feathers down to nothing on the side street there at Santa Rosa Place. We've got these meadow plantings, and when we go to the next page, let's see, we've got a big right-of-way there that we've got to basically try to leave the same. Yes, go ahead and go to the next page. So what we're working with is, we look at the pictures, we've got drought-tolerant stuffed trees. We've got, again, everything is low water demand, except for a couple of things we squeaked in there, though, with our water budget. And we've got sort of right around the house, it's pretty refined, clean green, almost shiny, leather leafy, might feel a little bit more foundation planty. The clients are from Tennessee, and they have this desire for sort of that same feel, but done on our water budget. And then when we get to the meadow, we've got a combination of grasses and then a little bit of pops of color, both in the grass heads and a little lavender there. There you go. So that's
And
that.
pardon my interruption, Ms. Grace, the 15-minute timer has elapsed. Sorry about that. The chair can grant additional time for the presentation at his discretion. And keep in mind, there will be an opportunity for questions.
Margie, do you need more time?
Not really. The rest is numbers that does the WELO and the, various calculations. So you can put those there for yourself if you like.
All right, thank you. With that being said, Ted, did we have any comments or emails? Anyone wanting to speak?
Mr. Chair, we don't have any items of public comment specifically for this hearing. However, the applicant did send in numerous favorable emails that were acknowledged at the Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
And they were all in favor of the project.
All right, great.
Let's see, in terms of attendees who would like to speak, if you are in attendance and you would like to give public comment on this item, please click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel, and you will have 2 minutes to speak once we call on you. And I do see a Jeff Lovegreen. So Mr. Lovegreen, I'm going to just unmute you here, and the timer will go on screen. And you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So we live at 106 Santa Rosa Place, which is just to the north side of this property. The staircase, Mr. Arell has indicated, would not be able to move it so that our view from their second floor is really mitigated. So my question is, in the northeast quadrant, Marcy's had an Arbus marina strawberry tree, which can grow as high as 40 feet. That would completely obliterate our ocean view from the second floor. And we'd like to just say, we appreciate it if that were somewhat lowered in that kind of vegetation in that corner there, at least to salvage some view of the ocean from our second floor. So that's our only objection here from our home here. And that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Margie, did you want to respond?
Yeah, that I'm aware of that. What our plan is to keep that tree small by putting it in a container. We're actually going to dwarf that tree. We're going to keep it at, we'll probably knock on your door of the neighbor and say what's the right height for that to be. But there's a great big telephone pole and a great big, right next to it is a great big palm tree that kind of reads like a second telephone pole from the backyard of the Plowmans of the project. And I think that we can work with the neighbor to do, we just need something to break the box of the, that whole just sort of line of hedging around there, that something, that the hedge not be the tallest thing in the yard, and then if we can't find a way to find something that's interesting, I'm wondering if a neighbor, if you're still there, what you think height would work. So we're not going to let that thing get mature size at all. It's going in a container.
Probably what I would suggest, Margie, is talk to the neighbor perhaps, and then when we see the next time, work it out or something like that.
Got it.
Yeah, cool. All right. Anyone else, Ted?
Mr. Chair, we don't have anybody else in attendance who has raised their hand, so we can proceed with questions from the board.
All right, thank you. So I'll bring it back to the board for questions. So I'll just go down the list here, and Board Member James, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Brian. My question would be to Margie Grace on the landscape plan. And on the meadow planting, I was curious what sort of plants you were planning on using on that slope, and how you were planning on irrigating it, and also what would be the fence material along shoreline there.
Okay. Well, let me go backwards. Fence material will be wood. I'd like to keep it lower than maximum height. You know, we won't be over 40 inches. I'd like to keep it at 36 inches so that it's just more friendly. And it really is about sort of excluding four-legged animals from, you know, leaving their traces in the front yard more than anything. So we see that as painted wood, and we will bring that, similar to the inspiration photo on this same page. If we go to the second page then, so all irrigation is drip. Let's go to the page that has the plants on it. Now let's go to the lower right-hand corner. So enlarge the plant list if you would please. In the upper left-hand corner. There you go. That's it. Thank you. So the meadow plantings, we've got some lavender, Lamandra Platinum Beauty, Melinus nerviglomus, and Pennisetum orientale. That's the one that is not invasive. So we've got just these different heights. Nothing's taller than about kind of thigh height. There's maybe going to have about 7 of those Lamandras that are just for a pop of interest and height, architecture. And the slope is not so steep as to need jute netting or anything. Everything's going to be planted, on grade and gopher baskets if needed and on drip.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you, Lisa. Jan, do you have any questions?
I do. So when I'm reading the description, I noticed that you're proposing a 1,080 square foot basement. And we haven't even really talked about this, but about the cut that's going to be involved and is this a storage basement? Is it going to be a daylit basement? Is this going to be habitable space? Can you expand on that a little bit, Clay?
Yes. Timmy, could you go to page 10, please? Perfect. I guessed right. All right. So this is the floor plan of the basement, and we didn't really present it earlier. Apologize. But in the lower left corner of the basement is a fairly substantial mechanical room that might actually be getting bigger. This is going to house all the mechanical for the building, other than second floor has a attic unit to feed the second floor. But we have Tesla power packs, solar equipment going in here, FAUs, all kinds of stuff. That's kind of the brain of the house. And then the rest of the basement, it's not a, there's going to be some storage in the lower right corner. And then the owner of the home, is an avid fitness person. And so there's going to be some fitness areas down here for working out. And that's pretty much it. That's about all that's going to fit down there. So there's there's mechanical utility on the far left, lower left, and there's storage on the lower right. And then there's going to be kind of a workout space in the rest of it.
Are there any windows?
It's only about 16 feet. There's no windows. No, it's all subterranean. There's no bedrooms or anything like that.
And what's the height, the floor to ceiling height in that basement workout area?
I think it's about 9 feet, 9.5, maybe 9 feet. I remember. I'm looking at a different drawing here on my own.
You have sections, Clay?
Yeah, I do, but I'm looking at. I was looking at them on my own because I didn't know what page it was, but we can look at it on. Hold on one second. Page 17, 19. We can go to page 19. We have 2 sections here. It's about 9 feet from slab to finish of the ceiling. I don't see a dimension on it, but I'm just gauging based on the ground floor.
Right. So is that basement area part of the FAR consideration? I'm just curious.
No, basements aren't counted in the FAR.
Okay.
The way the ordinance is set up, they're not counted towards the FAR calculation, but it is square footage.
Okay. All right. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions?
Yes, I think we asked this question before on one of the other projects about windows and access and egress from the basement. Educate me. Start a fire in the upstairs and it blocks the stairway. You're stunk. You're sunk. Stunk. You're blocked. Is that, I know we're not supposed to question building codes here, but Clay, could you give me is that to code? Assure me that is to code, that we don't have to have egress out of that big space down there with only the stairway leading out of it.
Mr. Motisha, this is Ted Hamilton. Just to respond to that, this project will be reviewed by the Building and Safety Division when it gets to the building permit phase. Issues like egress and egress and fire safety will be addressed at that stage.
Okay. All right.
Well, Joe, we'll be finishing up our full code analysis and reviewing that, but there's a couple options there.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had. We've seen this several times before, and I've asked questions. I think I've got them all answered. I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Yeah, my recollection, Joe, of the code is if we have a sleeping room, we need to have egress, but we don't have any sleeping rooms in there. But your point is well taken, and we'll verify that.
All right, thank you. Joe, anything else?
No, that's all.
All right, thanks. Robert Richards, do you have any questions?
Yeah, maybe just one simple question. Here on the landscape plan, it's calling to maintain the existing planting. That's the irrigated lawn as is. And the construction of this home and building a fence there and everything else that's going to go on, the intent is that lawn will be maintained throughout the process.
Yeah, that's unirrigated lawn, as is the curb strip, and it's basically gone to Kikuya, and somehow that drizzle is enough on the. They like the look of green. They'd rather do nothing to that area, but it's some of it's going to get impacted by some of the construction work. So they just as soon keep the curb strip and the planting, and they have no intention to irrigate.
That was my only question, so thank you for answering that.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sweeney, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a few. This is to Ted. Ted, did we get did the board receive the written material or comments or the vote from the Planning Commission?
I apologize, Mr. Sweeney. I missed part of that question, I think due to background noise. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, did we get Planning Commission comments and the vote, the material from the Planning Commission on their approval of this project?
We don't need to, I'm not sure I understand your question, actually.
So are you required to give us information from the Planning Commission vote so that we know what the Planning Commissioners voted on and what, if they made any comments, what they said? And did they do story polls on this project?
I don't believe that is required for your information for this hearing. However, we can look at the fact that it was approved by the Planning Commission, and we do have this this resolution as well that indicates what was discussed and some of the issues at hand.
Was that given to us, or did I miss it?
That is not typically provided prior to the hearing, except unless it's provided on the plans. And I believe in this case, it was printed on the plans.
Okay, thank you. And I missed it and didn't see it. I would like to.
Mr.
I'll save that for comments. The other question I had was, I'm assuming this house is not getting air conditioning because I didn't see a condenser location.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sweeney, just to answer your prior question, yes, the house had story poles. There was a site visit with the commission prior to the hearing, so that was done.
So this board was not notified about those story poles, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sweeney, if you weren't, then I guess that is something that was not done by the planning staff. I mean, I don't know why you weren't notified, but they were up for almost a week or more.
Okay, so we weren't notified. We weren't given the opportunity to go see the story poles. And I'll just share with you that's been hit or miss over the years. So somehow I hope somebody communicates to whomever that that's an important thing for us to see. Anyway, let's not get into that at this point. So back to my question about this house is not air conditioned, so there's no condenser, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sweeney, we are doing air conditioning in the house. We're doing a split system, and there's an air conditioning unit that's being circled on the screen right here. That's a temporary location. Okay. We haven't figured out exactly where it's going, but yes, we are planning that.
Okay. And then the barbecue that's outside there that's been added to the plan, is that a gas-fired barbecue or a fireplace rather?
Gas fueled.
Okay, thank you. And then when the garage was moved up so you could get the washer and dryer and so forth in there, did the square footage of the house go up and did that change the FAR?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sweeney, if Timmy, you could go to page 12, please. Can you zoom in on the garage area? Thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Chair and Commissioner Sweeney, the garage. If you just imagine flipping the program around, that's exactly what happened. We used to have a storage area on the north side of the garage that had trash can storage. We had an outdoor shower. That all changed. Gotcha. We decided to move it to the south of the garage. Yeah.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
The cars moved up and everything else moved down.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I had.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Fred. Jonathan, do you have any questions? Jonathan Ziegler, are you there?
Oh, I'm here. Am I muted? No questions.
Now I can hear you. Do you have any questions?
No.
No questions. Okay, thank you. So I'll bring it back to the board for comments. I'll just go down the list. Board Member James, do you have any comments?
I'm supportive of the project. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Farrell, do you have any comments?
I have no comments at this time.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, any comments?
Well, if you can hear me, I can't see myself. No comments.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Richards, do you have any comments?
I'll just give positive comments. A little concerned on the notion of a meadow around the outside of the home, but from looking at the plan list, I think it'll probably work. And so I'll give a positive comment or positive support for the project. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, on the just information on the basement and the amount of soil being taken out, and I assume off the site. I believe somewhere in the conversation, I've requested that Mr. Struppel or someone from the building department come to our board and explain to us about grading and what's involved. One of the things he will probably tell us is that under the current ordinances, which are based on Los Angeles ordinances, according to his comments, is that the soil, regardless of how deep the basement is, whether it's 9 feet or 20 feet, the amount of soil coming out there does not take any effect onto any decision this board or anybody else in the city makes in terms of grading. So it doesn't count against grading. It's negated. So everyone clearly understands. And then also the same issue is with the FAR. The ordinances do not allow basements to be calculated into the FAR. So as long as they're defined as a basement, which means they have no major openings to the upper floors, basements can be as deep and as big as they want to be. With regards to the windows and the second floor, if we could go to, there's a photograph, I think it's on the landscape architect's drawings, of a two-story house with a fence in front of it. Yeah, there it is. One of the things you'll notice is in these types of houses, and the style is very indicative of what's being proposed here, you see where the upper story windows go right up underneath the eave overhangs and fascia. And you kind of see that also in the little set of windows just to the right of the big windows on that second floor. And then there's another photograph, I think it was in the sheet that shows the finishes. It showed a window, a picture of a window and the hardy board finishes. Forgot what sheet that was on.
Page 25.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, whoops. Yeah, right there. See that where it says the painted casements? Whoops, go back. Went too fast. There it is. Yeah, see the painted casement windows at the bottom? See the relationship of those windows, the top of those windows, the header, and its relationship to the eave, on the eave overhang. You know, it's right up underneath that soffit or eave overhang. And also the window to the left, in looking at a traditional kind of hardy board or horizontal board pattern and window configuration. Now let's go to the elevation. I don't know what sheet that's on.
That's page 17.
Okay, any of those, that north elevation's fine. If you go to the second floor, as you look at the relationship of the headers of the top windows to the underside of the eaves, etc. Look at the space between them. And you look in the same thing on the right-hand side in the little piece that works out there. This is why I have objected from the beginning to this project in terms of design and why I voted no last time. That this house is just too high. The floor to plate heights are too high. The relationship of the window fenestrations are very awkward in terms of proportion. They don't really, they're not indicative of the language of window fenestration on this style of a home. It's unfortunate that the board was not advised about the story poles, because maybe that would have changed my mind about my understanding of the height of this house. But I will not support approval of this project for project design approval because the height is still too tall. The floor plate heights are too tall, and the resulting architecture makes a very awkward set of proportions with the window fenestrations around all sides of the home. So that's why I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Jonathan, do you have any comments?
No comments, guys. No comments.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Clay, I kind of tend to think that if the top plate of the second story was just dropped a foot, at least on the two ends, or that whole thing, it's a little too tall. I also feel that the basement 9-foot plate is a little much too for a basement, but you know, it's in the basement. You know, and it's only predicated to the fact that it's in this already established neighborhood, but we've already talked about this, and I know your client really wants it really tall. So, but I agree with Fred in terms of the proportions. Ted, could you come back up, please? Yeah, so it seems really odd that those story poles were put up for the planning commission and single family design board wasn't notified. It seems kind of like somehow that needs to be fit so that we are included in terms of stuff like that because it's kind of critical. You know?
Yeah, I apologize. That wasn't, you know, done prior to this hearing. To my knowledge, SFDB staff was not informed that story poles were required by Planning Commission for this project. So, you know, in the future, we will make sure to coordinate better between staff members just to ensure things like this don't happen.
Mr. Chair, this is Fred, and I'm going to follow up on that comment. This is why there was a grand jury report. This is why there was a NOVAC report. The silozation between departments makes it very difficult for boards to do their job, and it makes it very difficult for applicants to do their work. If this were a case where, and I don't believe it will be, where the majority of this board wasn't able to see the story poles and voted against giving this project design approval, that puts the applicant in a very, very difficult position and delays the project even further. I think in this case, I'm probably in the lone minority that'll be voting against giving this project design approval. But under some other circumstances, the inability for the staff to talk to each other or have protocol that keeps the boards involved is really a handicap, and it's just one of the checklists that I'm sure was in the grand jury report. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Jan, yes.
Could I just follow up with, so Fred mentioned something about the grading, and I've been watching the city council, or not the city council, but the grading ordinance meetings. And so I just wanted to follow up. Fred, could you clarify what about this, the grading issue? Can you help me out understand?
Thank you, Jan. That's why I requested Mr. Struffel or someone to come from the building department to explain it to all of us. But essentially, as I understand it at this point, we're not allowed, we have no purview over basements, period. We can't say whether they're 9 feet or 20 feet high, whatever, it's none of our business. And we're not to take into account any earth that's moved out to create a basement. It's just not under our purview. And it's apparently not under the building department's purview. So if somebody wants to dig a 30-foot basement and haul the dirt out of there with how many truckloads of dirt that will be, it's not covered in any ordinance, and an applicant can do that without any review, other than maybe dust from the trucks.
Okay, but because it was my understanding that if it was anything over 50 cubic yards, then it would be under our purview.
Yeah, but that's outside the footprint of the building. That's site grading. Anything outside of the footprint of the building is our purview. And right now, anything under 50 yards is not under our purview. And that's where they're having this discussion. So that's why I wanted the building department to come and explain it to all of us so that we wouldn't have to waste applicants' time and our time at every meeting trying to figure this out.
Thank you.
Hi, Irma.
Mr. Chair and board members, I just wanted to give you an update. The building division was before the council with respect to the amendments to the ordinance, the grading ordinance specifically. That particular, I think that somebody's having a phone conversation. That particular item, it was continued. So we don't have any resolution for that. But once we do, we are going to ask Andrew Stuffler, the building official, to come before the board and give you an update and a discussion on how that works and what the purview is and what they're trying to do. But yes, basically it was just to ask council if there was any reason, not reason, but how to better verify the 50 cubic yards that that we have, you know, as a trigger. And so there's a lot of ways to do it, but at this point, there was no resolution as to whether we would change it or whether we would require a certified documentation from engineers for that. So that's really what that was about.
Thank you,
Okay,
Emma.
thank you, Emma.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, with that being said, the client is here for project design approval. So if someone would like to craft a motion. I don't think they can get final approval because of the tier 3. So I need someone to craft a motion for project design approval. I'm speaking into a dark vacuum. Hello, there's somebody. Hi, Fred. Hi, Jan. Okay, Jan. I don't know, he came and went, so.
Well.
Could you please
So-
entertain a motion?
Yes, okay. I would like to give this project design approval with the following comments. I think the overall design of the home is compatible with the neighborhood. You use quality materials and the quality architectural details are compatible with the neighborhood. I also appreciate the landscape, the meadow planting, I think will be nice, the lavender, that all on drip irrigation. I think that the fencing around Shoreline Drive is compatible with the neighborhood. I do have a problem still with the two sides of the building being high and the way the windows are placed. I understand Fred's comments about them, and I even mentioned this when this came before us before, that those two sides could be lowered, keeping your center area at the height it is. But with that said, we're moving forward, and this should come back to consent for final approval. The project does follow good neighbor guidelines in that it is keeping with the neighborhood compatibility as far as size, bulk, and scale go. I don't know, I'm kind of at a loss here. And there we go. That's my motion. Is that enough?
Well, apparently you need to, what they're bringing up what needs to be said here. Hillside design and slope lot finding be included.
So the grading proposed does not interfere with the natural topography of the site, and the visual appearance and height of the structure is acceptable.
All right, thank you, Jan.
May I
Do I
make
have
a
a second?
May I make
Yes.
a comment in a second?
Well,
Please.
who's seconding it, Joe?
No, I'm not seconding it.
Oh.
Well, okay. Because you got to second it before you can open up for discussion.
I'll second it.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So it's open for discussion. Joe?
Okay, let me put some thought. when we asked, last meeting before that the house be lowered, and Jan hit it right there, right on the dot. She said, we asked, and what we got was a kind of lower the two ends by 6 inches, and I think we raised the middle by 6 inches. We got some depth, we got some changes in height of the building, but we didn't get any building that's lower. And I'm now, and we kind of compared that, or our applicant compared that house on the other corner just to the west, on the other side of Santa Rosa Place, and said the houses are the same height. Well, I don't know if the houses are, they may be on the same height, because the house to the west on the other corner sets on a lot, so maybe 2 foot higher.
Ted, do we have the minutes? Can we put up the minutes for this project from the last meeting? So
I'm looking right now. I'm just kind of looking at my MapQuest. I guess it's MapQuest, and turning around that whole corner there and looking at the house that's existing right now, which is a really small little house. We'll ignore that. But I'm looking at the house on the opposite corner, and that house is, as Fred has brought up today, the windows of that house are in style with the type of houses. The windows are brought up right up underneath the eave, and when you look at the elevations for the house, for the new proposed house, they are maybe 12 or maybe 15 to 18 inches below the headers of those windows, and doors are 15 to 18 inches lower than the eaves and the second story, the bottom of the second story floor line. And when you go around that whole corner there, you look across the street, there's just park right there. You see 180 degrees of nothing but ocean and islands and park. And I'm tending to agree with Fred that this house is just a foot, 18 inches too high. And
okay,
I'll stop right there. Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Well, I was just looking at the minutes because I don't want to, and it does say the board appreciates the articulations made in the south elevation to reduce the monolithic face presented in the previous meeting. I guess my concern is nowhere does the minutes specifically say lower the plate height. So I don't know if it's fair to the client to go. So, what does the board say about this? Do we need to do a straw vote, or do you want to vote on the motion that Jen gave?
Straw vote.
Mr. Chair, this is Fred.
Hi, Fred.
From a Robert's Rules of Order criteria, at least as I understand it, and I have the book sitting right here.
Sure.
You can take an action on the motion on the floor. If the motion is defeated, then it requires a new motion. And a new motion reworded otherwise. If the motion passes, then it's passed, and the project proceeds as presented.
Okay, so we had a motion presented and we got a second. So Mary, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Miller,
No.
Vice Chair James,
No.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
No.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
No.
and Board Member Ziegler.
No.
Okay, so it looks like 5 noes, 2 yeses.
Okay, so we need to recraft a motion. Who would like to entertain a motion? Yeah, Irma? No?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. So can someone please entertain a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would make the following motion. That the project, that we request the applicant to return to the full board with a request to reduce both the first floor and second floor plate heights. And the second floor plate height closer to 8 feet for ceiling height, closer to 9 feet for second floor to the eave plate height. And that the board is generally supportive of the architectural style and generally supportive of the remaining portions of the project, but is not supportive of the window fenestrations and the proportions that are indicated on all of the elevations. And we believe that the only way to achieve that is reducing the floor to floor plate heights and the height of the general height of the building. That's my motion.
I second that.
Thank you. Okay then. Do you want him to return to the full board or consent?
To the full board.
Thank you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. So Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, I believe that is the last.
Mr. Chair?
project. Yes, who's that?
Mr. Chair,
Is that Clay?
this is the applicant.
Yeah, hi
Yes.
Clay. Come forward.
So besides my categorically opposition to this pushing us back into the design realm, I think pretty unfortunate that there was none of that was brought up in the last hearing, and it was all positive, and here we are going backwards. So I'm very concerned about what's happening here in terms of process. Another reason for the reports that have been mentioned before. But there was no mention in the motion of when we can come back, and we'd like to come back in 2 weeks if possible.
The maker of the motion agree to that?
Oh, no, that's fine. Whenever they need to come back. And Mr. Ariel.
It wasn't
yes,
included in the motion, so I'd like it included in the motion, please.
we can include it in the motion. But have we taken the vote yet? No, right? So
Oh, yeah, we did.
the maker of the motion will
take the
amend
vote.
it to return in 2 weeks. Ted, that's not a problem, is it?
Mr. Chair, since we did already take the vote, we need to, I believe, we need to reopen the motion and add that
We
as
need
an
to do-
item.
No, if we've
No,
done the vote, but we need a new motion, and I'll be happy to make a new motion that the project return in 2 weeks. And my only question to Ted is that a problem?
If the applicant is ready to return in 2 weeks, staff would need, revisions by a week before the hearing date in order to properly, route the plans and do any reviews. And if the applicant is ready at that time, then that shouldn't be a problem, no.
Okay, so Mr. Ariel, is that okay if I make a motion for 2 weeks?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sweeney, yeah, Mr. Orell agrees, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. So that's my motion. Project returns in 2 weeks.
And I second.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to do another roll call?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, before we do a roll call, I want to be clear. Mr. Ariel indicated that they were all positive comments the last time this project visited. but if you can tell by the vote that was taken, I voted against it because I brought up this same set of subjects at the last hearing. So it wasn't everyone saying it was perfect. That was not the case. So it's not like we didn't discuss it before. Anyway, that's all my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, I conclude the Single Family Design Board for August 3rd. Thank you very much for your time.
You got to take a vote on the motion on the floor, sir.
Do we need to take a motion, Mary? A vote?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, we need a roll call.
Thank you.
All right. So we have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes, and I wanted to indicate that I changed my mind after hearing the story poles were constructed and we were not notified about them. So if the applicant wonders why I changed my mind, that's why.
Okay.
So Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards.
Yes, and I just wanted to say that the reason I voted yes during the first vote is because I saw the story polls up, and you know, it was kind of confusing as to why nobody was notified about it, but the size of the story polls didn't seem to conflict in terms of what I saw across the street. So that was my reasoning for voting yes on that. Support
Now
this.
Okay. Continuing on, we have Board Member Sweeney
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
Well, as you can tell that the Single Family Design Board is not an exact science, but we try to do the best we can. So thank you very much for your time. And that concludes our meeting for August 3rd. Thank you.